a
I
little
just
bit.
can't. I just can't handle the way. Like, this show is so whack right now. I've just got used to things being fucked up. Like, I'm just supposed to be cool with Loco wearing like one of those fucking headsets that like the co-pilot wears on a flight the whole time. Like, hey, Houston, we're coming in, Canelo.
Oh.
Why is he just wearing one of those for the show? Like, why do I just accept this shit like it's normal? What even is that? Why are you wearing that? Like, it looks like right now Loco's about to be like, yeah, guys, 1 second. Hi, this is Loco from Sun Life Insurance. What can I help you with today? Get me out of it. I don't know if he's fucking interviewing me or fishing for fucking info to get into your online banking or something. Right, this is going to be episode 51 of Listen Loco. And I got really hyped for this episode, actually, because I thought, right, downtime before MSI starts, what are the odds we're going to get some big name guests? Loco hits me up. He goes, I've got Jensen for the show. I go, fucking hell, it's about time he pulled his finger and actually got a good guest. Normally just getting like mates of his that I don't even know, just random Asian guys in the esports industry. I go, yes, Jensen. And he goes, I know, Jensen Goh. Let's fucking go. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Let's fucking go, baby. And he goes, no, I've got Jensen Goh. I go, what is that? Not the team. He goes, nah. I go, fucking. And I looked it up anyway. And this is actually someone who I still don't know what your job is. Because the thing is, since you've put Secret Ninja at Splyce, I don't know what that means. Problem there, mate, is you've got too cute. Like, you can only do that joke with your bio once they know who you are. Because then it's a joke, right? Like, if Loco now just put, like, some, washed up guy talking about that, I mean, that'd be accurate. But, like, if he did it as a joke, like some fucking washed up guy still waffling about Lee, then it'd be funny. But if I was like, was he ever a pro? So here's the first question, Jensen, is what do you actually do at Splyce now? Like, what is your title?
So I just got an offer for them to be the head coach of the Splyce Vipers for the next split. But the reason why
like academy team or something, right?
Yes, it's the academy team that was playing in the national leagues. But the reason why I put Secret Ninja at Splyce is because I didn't have an official title with them. And before that, I was head coach of teams in the LMS, in the LDL, which is the second division in China, as well as with EVOS in Vietnam. So when I went over there, it was kind of weird if they put me as an assistant coach or whatsoever. So I was just working with them in the capacity as a consultant. And then that's why I put that I was a Secret Ninja with Splyce.
Okay. And also in the Turkish league, right?
Oh, no, I've not worked in the Turkish league.
Oh, fair enough. Whatever. Maybe I mistook that one. Right. So one of the, as I alluded to...
Duncan, I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second. He's a little bit too loud. Give me one second.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay. I just can't handle the way. Like, this show is so whack right now. I've just got used to things being fucked up. Like, I'm just supposed to be cool with Loco wearing like one of those fucking headsets that like the co-pilot wears on a flight the whole time. Like, hey, Houston, we're coming in, Canelo. Why is he just wearing one of those for the show? Like, why do I just accept this shit like it's normal? What even is that? Why are you wearing that? Like, it looks like right now Loco's about to be like, yeah, guys, 1 second. Hi, this is Loco from Sun Life Insurance. What can I help you with today? Get me out of it. I don't know if he's fucking interviewing me or fishing for fucking info to get into your online banking or something.
So, I mean, without having sponsors, making a living is really rough. So on the side, I do take calls for Microsoft. Like, hello, this is Microsoft. How can I help you today?
If at the end of this show, once we finish previewing MSI, you've had any sort of an accident or an injury at work, then Loco can help you get full compensation with a no claims bonus.
Also, wait. So I hung out with Jensen lately. Jensen, yeah, Team Liquid Jensen, and he did say he'll come on the show after MSI, regardless of how well they do or how badly they do. So I'll get the actual Jensen on.
Listen, mate, I was just joking about that. By the way, all I'm going to tell you is this. Again, I won't put all the pieces together for everyone, but player gets banned for toxicity. Everyone says he's a piece of shit. All of a sudden, Seems to show a shine into old Thorin. Seems to relate to him. Understands what it's like to be a misunderstood fucking genius. Amazing at your craft, but people just find a way. You rub them wrong way. They're trying to ban you, shun you from society, fucking keep you down, repress you. And now what do? You just break through anyway. You just shine, baby. You just shine. They're trying to look over you. You're just fucking catching them out every time. Next thing you know, you're a motherfucking champ. Anyway, sorry. Actually, I got a bit off track there. None of that had anything to do with Jensen. So anyway, back to the episode. Oh, by the way, all you need to know is this, Loco. This is how you know. From my lips to fucking toxic players' ears. That's all you need to know, mate. Do you remember when they benched all the players in Cloud9?
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm trying to think who it was who made this tweet.
Jensen or
No, there was. I think it might have actually been Romain Big Aid, that guy who was working with Optic and then he's with the LEC now. I think it was him who made a tweet, and the tweet was something along the lines of like, it's like something really weird, like, oh, you know, like no player should be above the org or something, you know, anyone should be possible to be benched or something, which, like, you know, as a general point, it was a good point. But I just basically said, like, yeah, but the problem is that doesn't apply to like superstar players. Like, if you have one of the best players in the entire scene and you bench them, you will absolutely be the one who gets punished for that because you don't have the services of such a wicked player. And all you need to know is this, right? Like, immediately, Jensen's account just liked the tweet, and then all these people just noticed and were like, "Wait a minute, did Jensen just like that?" And they had all like screenshots, and they're like, you can tell Jack was like, "Get that fucking shit down now!" And then all of a sudden, it was like like it's just taken off. So it's like they're all watching. Listen, like I said, from my lips to their ears. So anyway, I know MSI then, because the problem is, Jensen, most people. I mean, if you've ever seen this fucking show, Loco can barely watch anything that doesn't have TSM in the actual fucking match. So
what?
The idea that we're going to know about smaller regions is not going to happen, mate. I can barely get him to say a coherent opinion about his native region of fucking Korea. So anyway, except saying like, "Oh, matter." Quickly, like you can hear like
I've been watching so much League of Legends. That's
hamster on the wheel, just running back to try and find some shit
False
from like season 5. Oh, season 5. Oh yeah, his bloody Thresh was good. Oh, is that still being played? Shit, I don't know. I mean Pike. Yeah, that's right. The hook guy. Yeah. So anyway, none of us know about the minor regions. I'm just going to tell you that straight up, mate. In fact, the sad thing is nowadays most people don't even know about the LMS, which is still in theory one of the major regions. So, like, most people probably. Sadly, because people simultaneously don't watch the LMS and don't watch the LPL, I don't think most people even realise that like most of the big names are gone from the Flash Wolves over to Sunning already, etc. So let's start out, right? Before we go into all the minor regions, can you just give us an update on like what the LMS was like this season? Like, is this actually your native region? Is that where you're from?
No, I'm from Singapore, which is where
fair enough.
It's
now it has its own weird status, right?
Yeah, in the LST and all that kind of stuff. So the situation of that is kind of weird. But with regards to the LMS, this is basically the flash rules in the end, they came true. But this is a very different flash rules from what we saw last year. Because like you mentioned, everybody has gone to the LPL now. And the only remaining parts of it is Hanabi and Betty. And they moved over.
Like later joining people anyway, right?
Yep. And they brought over 2 Korean imports in the form of Radar and Boogie. And I have to say that this split, it looked a little bit shaky from them at the start because this felt like they were going through an identity crisis. In the past, you could close your eyes and you could cast a Flash Wolves game. Oh, the bot lane, they're getting a lead, they're kind of getting a hit, the opponent's getting chunk low under the turret. Then mid and jungle, they get priority, they rotate down and they dive the bot lane, they take the bot lane turret, they get a tempo lead, they transition that into the mid game, and then they play this pick and disengage kind of style of mid game gameplay. And all of a sudden, there's one team fight. They win the team fight, they take the Nash, and then that's the game. That was your stock standard Flash Wolves games that they played through 2017. They played that through 2018. It was kind of almost one note. They expanded it a little bit more to include carry plays and going for that kind of team fight with the Gragas Kai'Sa combos. But it was still very similar core and concept of how they played. But this Flash Rules is actually very different because you're looking at a Hanabi being a very key central point of it. And this used to be a meme, right? That because of the way Flash Rules played, whoever would play in the top lane was always going to get the D. They're always going to be left in the top lane and be left to play 1v2 and get repeatedly dived over and over and over again by the opponent top lane.
It's a long tradition from Stake, right?
Yeah, it's ever since Stake, right? Stake and MMD, and everybody memes MMD as like this terrible player and stuff like that. But he's actually pretty decent at doing that type of role, and I think it's only recently that people started to appreciate players like MMD, players like Latby, who are
someone
very
who
good
can
at playing
just
this
sort
stuff.
of, pressure soak. They can just take the abuse. They can be the one who gets nothing. They're just over in one area to distract you slightly from the real person who's shining. You recognise any of this, Loco? You relate in any way? No, never mind, mate. Anyway, so what were you talking about in the flash rolls there? Yeah, so...
I mean, Loco could try out for them in the top lane. I wonder how he would do.
He actually did once. I've pointed this out in the past. Loco once tried to be a top laner, but instead they picked this little guy called Gold Tech, who changed his name to Flame and just became one of the greatest players of all time. So, there but for the grace of God go you, Loco. But it's okay because you role swap to support, and as far as I know,
oh my God, let's shut up and get on with the show. Just like fucking get on with the show. Oh my God, let's do the show.
Let's check Gamepedia for that. I think it was one or two championships. No, none at all. Right? Okay, my bad. So yeah.
I'm sorry, Jensen. Go ahead. Tell us more about Flash Wolf.
So this is a Flash Wolves that has a very different style of play. Not only the way that they allocate the pressure around the map, and they're playing a lot more around top lane more, and because of the disappearance of Maple, who used to play lots of, you would see him play champions a lot like Syndra, a lot like Lissandra. Those were his style of champions where he would like to get this push priority in the mid lane, win the mid jungle 2v2, and then translate that into the side lane, which was the bot lane previously. But now they are playing with Rudder, and even in the interviews, the other coaches are saying, and they themselves are acknowledging that this is a very big change in the type of resources that goes around the team because of the way that the mid laner plays. So Rudder is somebody who will play more for the late game. He will play to secure farm for himself, where Maple, he would be pushing mid and then trying to rotate into the side lane. Rudder would be spending the time maybe eating raptors or something, so that he can be securing himself a position to carry from the later game. So we see him play a lot more Vladimir, a lot more Corki, a lot more Azir. Whereas Maple is the kind of player who you'll see him play Assassins, because that's something that can generate pressure. And then you'll see him play Syndra, and then the Sign was something that he busted out at Worlds last year as well. So this is going to be a very different Flash Wolves from what we saw previously. And then the big question that everybody will ask is this Flash Wolves going to be stronger or weaker than the previous Flash Wolves? Sure. I would say that this is going to be a weaker Flash Wolves, because this is going to be the first split ever since they're undergoing this change in identity. Whereas previously, but I think it's a necessary change for them to make if they ever want to be more than just contenders in spring and pretenders in summer. Because Flash Wolves, they've always had this problem where they're meta setters previously, where they would figure out, okay, this is one node we can go with. We're going to attack the meta game in this way, and then they get figured out by the end of the tournament. So MSI, where you have a short tournament, you play 1 week, and then they do really well, they get figured out, and then they just lose in playoffs. At Worlds, you have it over 2 weeks, and then they kind of got figured out by G2. Yes. And I think G2 solved them very well last year during Worlds. But then now you see them going through this kind of struggle. Are they a Varus team, or are they a top lane carry team? But this would give them a more breadth in the way that they can play, and they don't become as predictable. And I think that it is a necessary step if Flash Wolves wants to evolve past their standard, you can close your eyes and know what's going to happen in Flash Wolves game kind of style.
What happened to AHQ in the split? Because I remember they were also another competitive team within like the LMS region. Like
that was a while ago. That was a few years back there.
Actually, this split AHQ was rather competitive, and they started out slowly. They started out poorly, and then they started to figure things out. And I think Ziv, he found a return to form, and a lot of people have been saying for a long time that Ziv is the best player in the LMS. And now that Maple and the rest of the Flash Wolves gang are gone, there is a very good argument that Ziv is the best player in the LMS right now. And they went up against the Flash Wolves, and interestingly enough, it was that match between Flash Wolves and AHQ. The games where Flash Wolves chose to go back to their old style, they played tanks in the top lane, was the games that they lost. And the games where they picked the cannon, something that had a little bit more agency in the top lane, and they played around the cannon, was the games that they won against AHQ. In fact, I do think that AHQ versus Flash Wolves was effectively the finals. I think Mad Team, they were kind of like they were the first, they were in the lead because everybody else was kind of like figuring out what do we do, how do we play the game, and they just had a coherent team identity, and they just sat on that, and they finished first in the regular standing.
The only thing is, though, for relevance, when he mentioned Ziv there, Ziv is also the only player that you will know for HQ. They also, like, all those players are gone. Like, all the old ones, West or Chowie, are all out the door. Basically, everyone from that team, pretty much. Oh, the only one who still remains is Anna. I forgot that, the AD carries, who's still a pretty good player. So, right. Actually, I thought that point you made was interesting, even though it's about the old Flash Wolves team, that, like, I never really thought about it that way, because that they're, like, the meta setters. Because if you look at it, almost every big international competition that they like surprised people in, which was almost all of them that they went to, because people used to always rank them the worst of the major regions. It was always week one where they got the mad like best of one results, and they were like beating Korean team. People actually, I always thought people mad underrated Flash Wolves. It's the same story every single year. They would always be like, oh, they dominated the LMS, but who gives a fuck about that? And then every time they were beating Korean teams when no one else was from the West. You know, this wasn't like a regular occurrence. So, okay, you said this other one will be weaker. Understandable. They don't have the like legendary names that are now over in the LPL. Like, do you think that they actually have a good stylistic matchup against any of the big teams? Like, is there one of them that they'd have a better chance of taking down, do you think?
It's difficult for me to say, because I think that this will come down to the MSI format and how the metagame develops, and would they continue to try to be setters, or would they try to become more like the solvers of the meta? And I think that this is something that they don't have a track record against, and because they don't have a clear, distinct style at the moment, because like I said, as you try and figure out how do we want to play the game. So I don't really think, until we actually start seeing the games itself, I can't really give you an answer onto that one. Individually, the players, they're solid players. This is a coherent team, which is a term I think people interpret it differently. But I don't think that this is a team where straight away you can go, oh, their bot lane's a weakness. Oh, their jungler doesn't know how to play the game, and they're just picking these picks to cover for it. So I don't think that straight away you can say that, oh, they're going to be exploited because of these reasons. But I can't really make an argument as to why they will be a threat against the likes of SKT or IG going into MSI itself.
Okay, Loco, I'm making an executive decision, right?
What?
I've sat back like fucking Professor X and analysing the situation, looking at what's out there in Cerebro, and I've come to the executive decision. Here's what we're going to do. For the first hour, so there's 45 minutes still on the clock, we're going to talk about MSI, we're going to talk about the playing regions, we're going to talk about small teams. After that, we're not talking about that for 2 hours. There's no way it's going to last. No one's going to last a minute. No human could talk about it that long. No one gives a fuck. So what we're going to do is, after the first hour, we give everyone all the educational information, you know. Then we have recess. And during recess, we're just going to talk about some freeform topics. Maybe we'll talk about Riot Games with the whole...
The Echo Fox thing. Echo Fox situation.
Echo Fox situation with Rick Fox. Yeah, we'll talk about... Jensen will join in as well. It'll just become a panel show for all.
Okay.
So that's my executive decision. We're going to salvage the episode... But we're still gonna get, you know, the education in them. So we're gonna try and reach them kids.
As CEO and leader and Red Ranger, I approve.
And I guess
Red Ranger.
I have a choice what to follow. Red Ranger has spoken.
Okay. I'd probably be the Green Ranger, you know. I think I'd probably be the person that like you'd let have the main fight before you got the Megazord together, because if I can't win, then you better get some sort of like advanced alien robot technology. It's blatantly stolen from anime, and probably some Japanese guy is owed a lot of money by that company, but he just couldn't win a lawsuit. So that's your problem. Likeness rights, bitch.
All right. So
I guess I'm extra two in the background, the guy that they meet at school, and then everybody forgets about. Yes. That's the
You're the guy who gets you get beaten up by those two like bullies, and then we come in like, oh, leave him alone, man, and then like that's the end of your episode. But yeah, okay. So the first hour, let's do this.
Yo, Jensen. So tell us about some of the play-in teams, like 1907, Fenerbahce. Who are the strongest play-in teams? Like, let's go strongest to weakest. Who are the strongest in your opinion?
So if you ask me to rank them, I think Fengvo Buffalo was definitely the leader in that group. And then the next tier we're looking at I honestly dislike the Turkish teams and the way that they do things, but because of the fact that they have a lot of money and they can import Koreans, they're probably in the second tier together with, I guess, maybe DFM and INTZ. But it's really difficult to judge playing teams because they play within their own region, and you see a lot of things that this team is winning because the other team has this holes in their gameplay, and they're just abusing those holes and they're winning because of that. Or some teams are winning because their opponents are losing rather than they are actually winning the game. And I think that's kind of like the top tier of teams. And then there's kind of like everybody else at the very bottom. I think you have Mega and Bombers. So in between that,
I thought Bombers was a really good team because like I heard they did really well in OPL and they brought over 2 Koreans and they're supposed
Wait a minute.
So you see.
Wait 1 second. You can address that like a real statement in 1 second. Because like he meant what he actually said there. Like, first of all, like, who have you heard from that Bombers is a really good team? Local. Wait a second.
From the Riot analyst, when they did like the play-in draws, both Frost and I forgot one of the other European caster, they were like, oh man, this was such a good year for OPL. Like they have a really strong team, and then they got fucked in groups. So I'm not gonna lie, I have not seen a single game of the minor regions. So I just go off of what people have told me, and from official Riot broadcast and official Riot analysts, apparently this was a really good year for OPL.
No way. Because a couple of things I'll immediately do there. So first, even without seeing the OPL, like fucking Adrian Monk or something, they walk in and they're like, "Oh, were you just on the train tracks? I saw the curve of your shoe had a speck of dirt which didn't match that." Like, I'm going to do that shit, right? First of all, there's no good teams in the OPL. Let's just go ahead and admit that immediately. It's all Australian guys and about 4 Koreans, as he just said, that just got brought in. And they obviously, the Koreans you haven't even heard of, and they're still dominating the OPL. So that's all you need to know about that. What a fucking joke. Secondly, then there's the fact that logically, if they were good, Loco, how could they be in a bad group? If you're good and you're in a bad group, you're the one getting out that group. You're making the group bad for someone else. You're loving your... Oh, wait. TSM coach, my bad. Right, forget about it. Yeah, go ahead, Jensen. What we said.
I've completely lost my train of thought, sir.
Do you know anything about Bombers?
About me is, I'm like fucking... Tracy McGrady in that All-Star game back in the day when he threw the ball off the glass to himself. I give myself alley-oops. That's how mad I am. I throw it up and I go get it in 360 windmill it. So anyway, his question was, I heard this OPL team's really good. How are they going to do? So you're going to now tell him some bullshit like, yeah, Loco, you heard stuff. Anyway.
If the OPL team actually good.
This is where I have to do my disclaimer that I've not watched all the minor regions, unlike what a lot of people would claim.
See what he's doing here, Loco? Take some notes, mate. Yeah, keep going, yeah. Honesty, transparency.
I've been transparent too. I told you where I got my information.
You said the same thing.
Yeah, you're transparent because I fucking see through you, homie. Anyway, keep going, Jensen.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? I honestly feel that the Riot analyst desk, they're incredibly biased in their presentation of things and the way that they present information. It's almost consistent ever since the day of the ever since the time of the IWCI, where they're just going to overlook teams. And I think we just talked about how people just overlook the LMS because, who gives a shit about the LMS? And then Flash News come in and then they surprise everyone. Whereas most people in the East, they would know that the Flash News team is always really strong. And even if you like beat Flash News in the game and stuff like that, people from China will come calling you up and trying to bring you over to the LPL and stuff like that. And that's what happens in Taiwan. But just the way that the Western broadcast works, the way that the analysts actually do the analysis is that they talk to a friend who kind of watches or kind of is involved in the scene. And then they say, there's a lot of hope for the Bombers this year because I'm Australian and koalas are kangaroos or something. Yep. And then they decide that, the OPL team, they might be pretty good. And they just root for them that way. Whereas the OPL team, I think, has consistently been one of the bottom performing teams throughout the history of the IWCI.
Okay. On that note, let me just have a quick rant because that actually applies to more than even just those minor regions. Like, I sort of get it if someone doesn't watch the Japanese league, the Turkish league, these leagues. I would still say if you are ever assigned to do a desk game about those, you better at least do some research. You better watch some games. You better know like some decent info about the team and not only go off info like you just said, Jensen, there. But that has happened, I've known in the past. It's the reason why I always get mad triggered. So recently there was the whole MSI like talent announcement for the English stream. And some of the people who weren't included, following in the long fucking tradition of Riot Games, was people who do the LCK. It was just Papa Smithy, basically. They didn't include any of the others. And now what happens is idiot fans in the West always go, you don't need to know a lot about the region to cast the games because they think naively, because every caster in the world says you watch LCK, that they all know the league. Now, I've mentioned this before. When I did a Korean League of Legends show, almost all those casters you're thinking know the region well kept telling me I don't want to come on the show. Like, I can't talk about any of the like bottom 5-6 teams. Like, I only watch the big games. Like, I missed last week. It was so convenient, right? The same people who in AMAs always say they religiously watch LCK. Every week I'd be messaging them, I didn't go around to watching those VODs yet. I'd be asking like 5 days later, like, what the fuck? Like, it's the main region in the world. So if you think they're also watching all of LPL and like, they're not. They're watching like 2 regions maybe. Then they watch a bit of another one. Then crucially, like Jensen says, they have a mate who's a caster in the LPL. They have a mate who's on a team in Korea. They have these friends and they just say to them like, give me like the cliff notes. Like, it's like the night before the exam. Like, come on, what can I remember? Like, give me a formula. And they're just like hearing, this guy's good. And that's why you get, this is the thing I'm going to go on the rant of course. Is when I do CSGO events, if I have a smaller team, I sometimes actually even say, Like, I haven't watched them myself, so I'm not going to give any strong statement. I only watch the best Counter-Strike, but here's the word of what people in the region say. They say they're the second best team, and they're on the rise. But I'll frame it like very, very conservatively. My problem is this: the reason I'm using this moment to springboard off what Jensen said here and call out the casters in the West is because not only do they do the lazy ass thing of just basically copying their friends' opinions, but this is where I've got you, motherfuckers. I've got you banged to rights, because here's the thing. I know you don't watch 40 games of that fucking league. And so the way you speak with such certainty is mad insincere. And in fact, I can tell you what these casters do. They do this psychological trick where, to try and distract you from the fact they didn't watch the league, they make their opinion twice as strong as it should be. Like, they take what their friend says and they don't just go, well, I've heard, this player's was pretty good. They're like, he's the best player in the LGL and he's got, it's like, they try and overblow it. So, I see you, motherfucker. I see all of you. And I know what went on behind the scenes, and I know what conversations happened, and I know how much you actually know. So I can't do anything about it. I can't get on that Riot broadcast and tell everyone in the world what the fuck you all frauds are doing, but I see you. So watch how you phrase all that harsh analysis you give to the small regions. Watch how you blow up regions like the OPL because your mates in the OPL told you from the English stream what to say, like Loco and his old buds over here. And watch what you say, because you're actually potentially ruining the history of your game. Because one day people will look back, see that VOD, and think they're the most high-level experts in the world. Whatever they say must pass from that region. And we'll end up with some shit like when Jack literally said on a world's broadcast in the fucking quarterfinals that Pawn wasn't a threat to play Yasuo. Literally the fucking champion. He had one-tricked a year prior. So someone who doesn't know what they're talking about making a very bold statement because they're thinking, I can fucking pull this off. It's yeah, you can trick some of the people some of the time, motherfucker, but I stay watching. So anyway, that's the end of that rant. Back to you.
Wait, I actually just want to pile into that. Okay, I just want to pile into that because I was so triggered when they're doing the MSI draw show, and then the endless death segment, they were going in, they're hyping up Fenerbahce. Oh, Ruin is so good and stuff like that. And then they go with the Vedis, and Vedis says that, I think Fungal Buffalo will make it off the group. And then his reasoning was because I like Mark Ruffalo. Are you kidding me? It's there's so many things to talk about. Zeros versus a Ruin and top lane matchup, and so many things. And his choice of analysis is, we are going to go with a meme that is going to be completely irrelevant to the Vietnamese audience that is going to be watching the show. And I think it's just so symptomatic of this type of lazy analysis when it comes to the MSI playing draws. And I think it shows all the time because the EU casters, they tend to be the ones who do the playings event itself. They always predict in the favor of the Turkish teams. And I'm going to go ham on the Turkish teams later because I honestly think that their way of finding success in League of Legends is, for lack of a better word, is kind of lazy. And I'll go into more details why when I go into my analysis of Fenerbahce. But I think that this is just back to the analysis testing. The analysis is just so lazy that you choose to go with a meme when you're trying to sell up a team, and then you just say, Ruin is such a good player, they have Kiri and stuff like that. And it comes to Fungal Buffalo. Yep, Mark Ruffalo, he's the reason why the Incredible Hulk's going to appear, smash the opponent's computers on the stage, and that's how they're going to win the MSI.
Okay, we can go back to OPL later, but let's start with the Turkish teams then. Why is the Turkish team not the favorite in this group? Because usually when the region has a lot of money and a lot of big name imports like Wolf, Frozen, Kirei, Ruin. These aren't huge imports, but these
you can only import 2 players.
Mm-hmm. Same reason NA wasn't better than EU all those years. There you go, Loco. They had more money. Only could get 2 players on the old import, wasn't it? Why, God, why?
Isn't the Turkish league supposed to be the league below for Europe, where a lot of the top tier European players actually grow up from the Turkish league? So I'd imagine even the
not that many anymore though.
Okay.
Now they're nearly all in the national leagues.
Abadagi was from Royal Bandits previously, and I'll bring up Royal Bandits later, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think that the Turkish league, every time they go into a tournament, this is exactly the type of team where everybody looks at the 2 import players and says, holy shit, these 2 import players, they're so insane, they're hard smurfing in the league, and that's the reason why they're going to win the league. And then this is why I have to pause them and say that, have you seen the rest of the map? Have you seen the rest of the players that they have to play with? Last year, when EVOS had to play Supermassive at MSI, when I was doing my prep for them, I was looking at this team and I saying that this should be a very comfortable win for us because all they had was Snowflower and GBM in the mid lane. So Snowflower, Flower and Support, and GBM in the mid lane. their jungler doesn't know how to play League of Legends, only plays like Skarner and Trundle. You ban those two champions, and what does he pick next? He picks Elise. And Elise is a champion where you kind of like want to play it the way that Griffin does. We're going to see it set up for these kind of snowball lanes and things like that, and they just couldn't find it. And that has been the history of the TCL. You will see Brazil steal games. You will see Russia steal games of major teams. You will see Vietnam, which is the next biggest region in terms of the playing regions. They will take games off the major region teams, but you will never see the Turkish team take games off the major region teams because it is always two Korean players carrying three people who don't know how to play League of Legends. Their only role in the game is to be a wooden dummy. It's like in football, what they say, you put Ronaldo on your team, and then you just have 10 wooden boards that kind of like knock the ball to him automatically, and he will score the game for you. And that's how they go through the Turkish league.
I thought League was huge in Turkey. I heard, Turkish League gets so much funding and so much big sponsors because in Turkey, there's no other esports other than League that's huge. There's no PUBG, there's no CSGO, there's no Dota. It's just League. So all the players play League and all the money goes into League. So why aren't the Turkish players good if there is so much funding and so much focus around League?
Because all that money goes into hiring Korean players and Korean coaches who would then continue to help the Korean players instead of developing their own talent. And then it's why I think it was such a shame that Royal Bandits did not win previously. I mean, we now get to see what Broken Blade was like. I know that he improved a lot, but he has a chance to play in a major region itself. But that was a team that didn't have Korean imports. Their imports were Abadage and Freeze, which was a rookie player and a veteran player coming back from an injury. And then that was a team that was kind of developing talent. They were working with Doge, they were working with Broken Blade, and that was a team that was coherent. You couldn't look at it and say that, oh, there's this big gaping hole over there. And I think it was a very big tragedy that they did not win. They kind of choked in the finals, and they let Supermassive win the finals and represent the Turkish region of Worlds instead that year. And I think that's the very unfortunate thing. So they're spending all this money, but it's not spending it in the right ways. They're not trying to develop their own talent. And because every time, if you just look at the most played champions on this team, let me flip to my notes, right? For Fenerbahce, what does the mid laner play? Tank utility mid laners. He plays Lissandra, he plays Sion, he plays Gallo, and his only job is, when the top laner asks for help, drop the wave mid and go to top lane and help him. And that's the only way that they play. And because of that, the top laner, he's got a better offer somewhere else, or he's kind of like, he wants to go back and play in career or whatever it is. They're going to leave. And then this mid laner, all he knows how to do now is be a role filler for who is going to be the carry now. And what do? Instead of trying to develop somebody to be that carry now, they just, they've got all this money. Instead of trying to develop a mid laner and helping him actually learn how to play League of Legends, we're going to maybe buy Huni from America or something. And that's the reason why Turkey is always cursed with this, because the winning formula for them has been import Koreans, let Koreans carry your team, go to MSI, and then the rest of the team is like, oh yeah, we're playing with these players who don't know how to play the game.
You know, the sick thing, Loco, is there is one level that I will actually acknowledge that Riot was correct with something that's a big time move they did, which is if they hadn't have made import rules as they did, because I didn't know how big like salaries and the amount of investment in League would get over the years, but I actually realized they are right, you know, if they hadn't have made a limit to how many imports you could have, a lot of the minor regions and a lot of like lesser teams would just be all Korean.
Yeah,
there'd just be 5 Korean. But here's the thing though. Are you ready? Watch my eyes as I say this. I don't care. I would fucking love that. If you can't make it, but I'm Turkish and I'm not good enough to play this team. Do you know what a fucking rock is? Go to the park and throw it against the wall. Why the fuck would I care? You're bad at video games. Why would I want some sort of mad subsidy where the government has to like let you play a video game? Why would that be a thing? There's a lot of things you can do in this world. Sucking at video games, but then being allowed to make a salary shouldn't be what people in gaming.
Riot's goal was to make esports global and League of Legends global, and to do that, they have to invest into minor regions and they have to invest into talent in those regions. So I understood the import locking, but they did like a really great job of making all the regions somewhat relevant. Like there are these like kind of minor tournaments, or these tournaments that all the minor leagues that funnels into MSI, that funnels into Worlds. So I actually want to disagree, and I say Riot did an excellent job of globalizing League of Legends. It is the most popular esports around the world. When you think around the world, like you think everywhere, Brazil, Japan, South America, like Europe, Korea, China, like there's League played everywhere around the world. So yes. I mean, I disagree. I think they did a great job of globalization.
Yeah, they did a great job. Like, I remember the first big tournament they held to try and make League a global game was called the Season 2 World Championship. And actually, a little funny story that came out just the other day, a piece of trivia. You might be interested. We'll tie this in and then we'll continue on with the show. So what happened was, one of the world champions of Season 2, Toys, legendary mid laner, famous for his Orianna, including the Toys technique, which most of you don't know because you're not in a secret cult. So if you know anything about this player, legendary player, obviously his team won in a very inspired fashion. You know, nobody expected them. That's right, Hotshot GG Insane. Nobody did. Your video interviews clearly do not state that you definitely think they will win. You just say that you think they're a good team. You cannot parlor that into saying you predict them to win. You are full of shit. Anyway, roll that back a second, but don't get depressed. After all, who knows if that exists? Right, then what we're going to say is this. When this guy won the World Championship, what's cool, I'll give Riot props for this, is they actually decided, we don't have this in CSGO, but I think it's awesome, that they would make it like we winning a Super Bowl, winning Worlds. You get like a championship ring.
Yeah.
So obviously that's baller, right? Because what I always envision when that happens, I know this from StarCraft Brood Warrior, we used to get a little pin when you won an OSL or an MSL.
I have an OSL pin.
The cool thing about that is it means that you can then, in theory, everywhere you go, if you go to an official esports thing, you can have your pin and everyone can in their brain go, wow, he was a champion. So here's the thing, right? They give Toys this ring and they tell him, oh, you're going to fucking love this ring, Toys. I mean, ironically, if he likes toys, fucking likes flashing that bling, whatever, the burner, right? When he gets the ring, they go, oh, keep hold of that, mate. Probably might want to get insurance on that. It's worth $5,000, maybe even $10,000. Toys, it was put on Reddit, he's doing streaming. He took this ring to a jeweler, right? The jeweler inspected it, and the jeweler literally goes, 10,000? No. That jewel's worth about $1,000, and the ring and the rest of it's maybe worth like $100 or something. So they literally lied to his face, told him a load of shit about what they told him. It had like a sapphire in. Mm-hmm. Now I don't know if they were just like, maybe they were just sat around. I'm trying to think of the year what would have been like. It would have been about 2012, which is around like season 2 of Game of Thrones. So you remember there was that episode where Jaime Lannister like tricks those people who chopped his hand off. Spoilers for season 2 of Game of Thrones. You daft cunt! It came out about fucking almost a decade ago. If you haven't watched it now, guess what? Everyone in Harry Potter dies there. And you know what? Star Wars isn't even good by the time you get number 7. I've spoiled everything for you. The universe ends in heat death and we're all fucking gone, not even a memory in anyone's brain. So I'll spoil it for the end of the universe then, right? Anyway, scroll that back. Here's the point I was getting to, is that when they gave him that ring like that, obviously they were full of shit, right? So what's great is Toys at the end of the video even like says thanks to Riot and all their hard work getting his ring made. But it was just a load of shit. Why didn't they just lied to him? They just lied. And in many ways, we're all, in this scenario and many scenarios involving Riot Games, we're all Toys, aren't we? Getting palmed off with something that's not worth as much as we thought it was after we had initially thought that we'd won and been celebrated by Riot Games. That's the end of that segment anyway. You can see I'm just going to tell everyone right now, I just honestly don't give a fuck. Right. So I'm going off any time I need to on this one. Anyway, back to the show.
Yeah, Jensen, so to ask a little, how good is Ruin? The Korean import that they got, this is probably...
He's terrible. He used to be in the fucking EULCS, mate. He's absolute garbo. Come on, he used to just run it down all the time. Anyway, what was your version, Jensen? What do you think of him, mate?
Well, I don't know how good he is, but I'll just put it this way. It's very difficult to tell how good a player is going to be once he plays at an international level. Like I heard you on stream earlier, you talked about, and you were going through like some of the team bios and stuff like that, and then you looked at a Vega Squadron, and then you said things like, oh, individual mechanical prowess and champion pools, they don't carry over into international tournaments, especially when you go from play-ins into international. And I think this is super true for Ruin. He's going down there playing against Turkish top laners that are not called Broken Blade, and then you're getting this insane plus 1,000 goal lead individually at 15 minutes. And I think that's not really gonna be the case. But I have to say though that if he does, because I'm not an expert in top lane, right? I'll be honest, I'm not an expert in top lane. It's just that if they do make it off the group, it's because this guy goes Super Saiyan. And he decides to put the whole team on his back, and he just carries 1v9. But he's up against Zeros, who is somebody who has proved himself on an international stage and plays against actually decent top laners in Vietnam, although they are not Korean. But he has showed that he can play against Wonder. He has showed that he can play against Hanabi, despite how bad people think Flash top laners are. And I think that Zeros is going to be a very major factor in this matchup. Ruin versus Zeros would be the deciding factor of this group. Actually, I wouldn't say it's the deciding factor of the group, because it's very likely that both of them will kind of like neutralize on each other and it's going to be the other sides of the map in which the Turkish team would lose very hard in, and that would decide the matchup between Fengfu Buffalo and Fenerbahce.
I mean, tell us more about Fengfu Buffalo. We know of them a little because of Worlds, but I mean, I don't know that much about them. I couldn't name their 5 players if you asked me to.
Well, I mean, I think so. At least you're honest about it. At least you're honest about it, and instead of going for Mark Ruffalo, right? But I used to coach in the BCS. I was coaching there for 1 full year, and they actually have developed quite a bit as a team moving forward from their summer split. Sorry, they haven't developed that much as a team. They developed a lot moving from spring to summer in 2018. Now moving to 2019, they've kind of been on the same note because it was a bruiser-centric meta, and they've been finding a lot of success playing bruisers in the top lane. Now, this team is the same team that you guys saw in 2017 Worlds, with one change to the top lane. So when they brought in Zeros into the roster, this guy is an absolute mega carry, and it shows in the games that they play. They don't necessarily play directly for top. They play more towards mid and jungle, and then they translate mid and jungle pressure into the top lane. Sorry, what was your question again? I kind of
how good is this team? How good is this team? Like, what can we expect from them?
I expect them by far to be the strongest playing team, but because of the way the meta is changing at the moment, I don't think that they would be putting up the same performance where they're threatening the major region teams. But I think we have to see. Like I said, for starters, it is close to becoming a coherent team, in the sense that you can't look at this team and point out, oh, there's this very obvious weakness with the team, which is the case for almost all the other playing teams, where you can say that, oh, the bot lane is the problem here, the mid lane is the problem there. In this case, across the board, they have decent players, so they won't be like getting giga stomped in any of the lanes. I think bot lane is probably the closest to something that can be exploited, which is unfortunate for them, because the other 2 teams in the lanes have very, very strong bot lanes, which is TL and Flash Wolves. So when they play against TL or Flash Wolves, I would think that would be exploited more. And that is from what I saw in the finals when they played against my previous team, EVOS, where they picked like Ash Kench into Lucian Trash and lost that matchup.
Oh, do you guys want to know a fun fact about Vietnam? Vietnam has the single most largest player base after China for League of Legends. They are the 2nd biggest region in terms of just pure player base wise. The region is supposedly fucking huge. When I was on...
No, it's really huge.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate thing is that...
Wait a minute. Think about what you're saying there, Loco. If Vietnam has the 2nd biggest player base after China, then based on the argument that, admittedly not on this show because Mark Z turned into a massive pussy and literally didn't bring the topic up until 5 minutes before the end, and then there was no time to make any of the mad points and disses that he'd done on Hotline League. Oh, weird how that works, isn't it?
He apologized to you over Twitter DM.
Don't really give a fuck, so apologise on the show.
What the hell?
Anyway... Since he never brought any of those points up, the key point that Weldon and Mark made is that the reason why they believe you shouldn't compare NA to EU is that EU has a way bigger player base, right? And their argument is literally, I mean, you know what Weldon's argument is, but their argument is that talent literally scales up. So, you know, if you have 10 people, maybe like half a guy is talented. If you have 100, I don't know, it's like 4 people. If you go, so they believe talent scales like that, right? Now, aside from the fact that they can't explain why, you know, China doesn't have like 5 fakers or whatever, they also would be massively stumped by finding out that fact that Vietnam has a larger player base than all the other massive regions. So if that's true, why doesn't Vietnam have all these amazing players? Why don't they have 10 Bjergsons just sitting around in their back pocket? I mean, I would suggest it's because it's not just about how many players you've got. It's things like, what is the culture of playing the game? Like, how many coaching staff do you have? Exactly. Do you have other players that come in who bring something else and you learn from them, etc.? Can you scrim against people who are good? Is the league even able to pay like salaries, etc.? So go on, Jensen, give us the answer to this question then. If they have so many players, why hasn't Vietnam ever become really good? Like, why have they never had their TPA, as it were?
It has always been the case of Vietnam where first there's very little money in the region. So despite how big it is, the player salary is actually very low. So they're the complete opposite of Turkey in terms of the amount of money that's available to them. So it's like the previous team that I was with, EVOS, is effectively the TL of the region because they can afford to pay players double of what everybody else pays. And even then, that is still a fraction of what players in the ELCS get. So that is how low the salaries are over there. So if any player would, like Levi, he wanted to return. He sat on the bench for 100 Thieves, and now he's sitting on the bench in the LPL, and is absolutely miserable. But the fact that because of the amount of money and the discrepancy in the amount of money that he earns, if he went back to the VCS, he will be earning 1/10 of what he earns.
Right.
Give us a like a round ball number. So it was revealed.
A ballpark number.
Ballpark.
Like, do they make, for example, like, thousands per month? Do they make 10,000 per month? What kind of region are we in for the good salaries?
So average LCS salary per year is 300K. That was
No, here's the problem with that, Loco, is that when you say that, people are going to be confused because average is like the average. So the problem there is if someone makes $1 million, when we average it, it's average. So even though you're right, it is 300K, that doesn't mean that if you just pick a player at random, he'll have 300K salary.
So
very unlikely.
I'll do this. So average starting rookie salary for LCS is somewhere between 120 to 150.
Right.
Hyped up rookies can get up to 200 to 300.
And what do you think the highest is in the LCS? Million?
Yeah, $1 million. Probably $1 million. $1 million is like a good round number to say like the highest absolute top tier players. That's what they should be getting paid.
Okay. What's Vietnam like?
It's 10,000 a year.
A year?
Dollars?
Yep.
10,000
US
a year.
10,000 a year. That is how low they are getting paid.
Wait, so there's players that are getting paid less than $1,000 a month.
Yep. And that is
to be fair. So it's it's impossible to live on that, etc.
Holy shit.
By the way, if you've never been, as a quick aside, I'm not even joking. This isn't even a persona in any sense. If you ever want to go on holiday to somewhere really lovely that's sunny, Vietnam's the spot to go. It's fucking amazing. It's so cheap. And literally, like when I went there, this is what's mad. When I went there, I actually ended up with less respect for people who make Hollywood movies. Because in those like war movies where you see like an amazing scenic shot of like the sun going down, it's like all red across the sea and there's like the fucking mist and all that. And you go, wow, the cinematography in this movie. No, that's just what it's actually like. Like they haven't even done any effects there. That's literally what it's like. It's fucking baller. It's really cheap. Unfortunately, the one downside, because it's really cheap, it's fucking full of Russians. So if you can handle that, fair play. If you can handle it, I can handle it. I've been playing Counter-Strike my whole life. I can handle fucking 4 Russians. At least they're not asking me to drop a fucking AWP. They're just sitting drinking out of a coconut or something. So fair enough, I can handle it. Anyway, just an aside, genuine recommendation, go to Vietnam. It's legit.
Wow. 10K a year, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is insane how low the salaries there are. So like the highest paid player there, I think it's about, I can't say who, but it's close. It's about double of the average. And that is how little they're making.
Wait, so the highest paid player is 20K a year.
Yep.
We don't pay our academy subs. We don't pay our academy subs that much. I think like people that are on academy subs just to be on the roster get paid from 500 to 1,000 a month. Like people that don't even play a single game and they're there just to be a sub or to even like stream on the side. Like so someone like Spica, someone that used to be under Equifox, like just to be under Equifox because he's developing and he wouldn't play a single game, I would imagine is getting paid 5,000 or 500 to 1,000 a month just to be on the roster. And that's like
by the way, in a mad way, he's actually picked one of the most genius names of all time to be a League of Legends player with, because he probably automatically gets like a random 2 out of every 100 games. Someone tries to type his name, typos it, and then gets banned from the game for actually typing in a slur, and therefore he's just like boosted through E all the time. Pretty fucking next level trick, and it's like Inception or some shit. Anyway, keep going.
So for comparison, the average graduate there actually earns under 1,000 as well. So if you get a university degree and in Vietnam and you work in Vietnam, you actually earn under 1,000 a month.
Wow.
In Vietnam as well. So, and the cost of living there is actually really, really cheap.
Yeah, I mean, cost of living has to offset it, right? Because if we're thinking 10K in US, like you can't physically live here with 10K a year, so like it's offset by the lower cost of living. Anyway,
so Levi is kind of cursed to forever ride the bench because it's going to be very difficult for him. And then when like SFN talks about going back to Vietnam, it's like that's bullshit. You're never going to go back to Vietnam.
Yeah, because I actually wondered why he'd signed with that LPL team. Because if you don't know, like he never gets in the fucking game. Not least because the stupidest thing about them signing him to that team is the player that he obviously replaces when he comes in is flawless. And that guy is not only way better than Levi, he's even the same type of jungler. Like it doesn't even make sense to have Levi. Like it at least makes sense if he did the old like blank Bengi thing and he was playing the opposite champion pool. That would have a logic to it. So it makes sense now though. If you make that much money and even though he's not getting into the games, there's still possibility, you know, some other LPL team has interest in you from scrims or something. So I get it in that sense. So what I'm actually that out of all these teams here, like, do you actually think that the group draw was fair?
Well, so we're jumping to the topic now. The results of the group draw was, I think, kind of okay in the end, but the way the seeding was, I think that like Mega being part of the first seeds, I think that was absolute bullshit.
Like, basically, for people who don't know, a team from Thailand joined the team from Vietnam, Russia, Turkish League. You know, these are the regions everyone knows are the big regions. Well, the problem is, when you think in history, like, for example, Brazil has always been a pretty good region. No, they were in Pool 2. So like, was there a reason given as to why the Mega team, the Thai team got boosted? Because, like, Thailand, as far as I know, has never had any impact pretty much on League of Legends.
So from what I saw and from the release that they had was because they counted like results in the previous 2 years, and the thing was that Vietnam was still part of Southeast Asia in 2017.
Oh,
so
right.
They counted Gigabyte Marine's results in favor of Mega, and that was why they were seeded as a Pool 1 team. And the state of the LST right now, we can go more into that later if anybody cares about that at all. But that is the unfortunate side of League of Legends. There are basically no pro teams over there, except for Mega, which is another team which is buying Koreans to kind of Giga Boost stamp into a playoff spot. Yeah. And somehow there's still owners out there today who believe that, if we make it to Worlds, our organization can make tons of money. And they somehow believe that will bring them to the promised land, which I think by now that's kind of been proven that nobody cares if you make it to Worlds if there's only 200 people watching your league back at home.
Well, we're talking about Riot Games, a company that literally had a problem with its internal corporate culture of farting on people when they didn't want to have people's fart in their face. So in that kind of a world, I can believe they could fall into the poor decision-making of not understanding the nuanced geopolitical situation of their own fucking global league that Loco was busy earlier on blowing smoke up them butt cheeks for. Thought it was really fucking great, didn't he? So anyway, again, 10k ring, no, $1,000 stone, $100 ring. Really not even vaguely worth. Literally magnitudes of lies stacked upon lies. A lie tesseract to take us all into a new dimension. So anyway, there's 10 minutes left. Put the clock up. 10, start a fucking atomic clock countdown, because for the next 9 minutes, baby, we're going deep into these planes, and then we're not talking about that shit again for a second more. Right. So go, Loco.
Or Jensen, who are the other really strong teams other than the Vietnamese team, Phong Buffalo, that's in the play-ins that we can expect a lot more from?
So I just want to talk a little bit about Group B, because we haven't had a chance to talk about that yet, right? So we have INTZ and DFM in Group B, and once again, there's the whole Western bias kind of thing where it's like, Brazil has got this very large fan base and things like that, so they all think INTZ would definitely make it out, and some people are calling the group really free for them because both Phongvu and Fenerbahce are in Group A. But I honestly think that DFM have a very good chance of making it out over them. And here's the thing about DFM, right? The Japanese team is another region that literally nobody watches, but because all the Asian teams scrim on the Korean server, a lot of Asian teams actually know that the Japanese team is the real chokers when it comes to international tournaments. They can actually play well in scrims, but when it comes to playing at international events, they just kind of disappear off the face of the earth. And there is a stylistic matchup that works very well in their favor, in the fact that they can play a very strong split push style with the top laner, whereas INTZ, they have shown that they're not very good at dealing with split push in their games. So that's kind of the wrap up for Group B, and I still think that INTZ might be the favorites, but it's just so difficult to tell, because when it comes to these play-in teams, you can make a prediction, but at the end of the day, somebody just destroys lane and then that carries the game for that team, and it's very difficult to tell because you don't get to see these people play against each other, and you don't really get a good read of how strong they actually are until you see them play against one another.
Have you ever?
I don't know that much about the Brazilian leagues, but I used to check in, on who's winning the league, who's doing the best, and I don't remember most of these players. Like, I remember all the old school players, BRTT, Tockers, all those guys. Like, is this like a newer core of players that has come up to the top of the Brazilian league?
Yes, this is a newer core of players. They're pretty much rookies, and I think the only big notable name on it is Shinny, who I think Emily Ren did an article on about how he was the dopa of the Brazilian scene. He was this guy who used to be a booster, then decided that he actually wanted to play competitive League of Legends, and then he burst out to the scene. He has been doing really well, and I think that he's going to be the person that a lot of people are hyping up. But like I said, when it comes to playing teams, I'll always have to say that. But look at the rest of the team. So you can say the mid and jungle for INTZ is really good, and the top laner is kind of he plays kind of everything, and he seems kind of stable. But the bot lane is the big weak point for the team. And if you have that hole on the team, I don't think you will be a threat to the major region teams because they just blow you up from that point. And I think that is where you might drop games in the playing stages simply because you have that hole in your team itself.
When you worked for all the previous teams you worked for, did any of them ever play in like the play-in section?
Only EVOS, where we had to play against Supermassive.
Okay, what's it like for these teams? Like, how big of an opportunity is it? Like, what's kind of like the mindset for all these teams like competing in the play-in teams?
Well, I think first of all you have to look at it's the format of MSI. It is a very brutal format when you get the group stage itself. But when you're just preparing for the match itself, finding scrims is actually going to be your biggest challenge because a lot of times people don't want to scrim you because they think you're a waste of time. And that was our challenge. We went to play-ins, and the only team that was nice enough to scrim us was the Flash Wolves. And we played like 10 games, I think 12 games against them, and we was 0-12 against them in scrims. It was the most depressing thing ever. We just went in there, we just get absolutely smashed against the Flash Wolves. And I think it's also kind of the way both of us approach scrims because we are hearing stories about Supermassive, they're going 50-50, they're counting the scrim bugs against Flash Wolves and all those kind of things. But I mean, when we went to MSI, we only scrimmed with the Flash Wolves while we were preparing for the playing stage, and it was kind of a BG for us. I think this time is in Asia, so they have a better chance to access other contacts, but I'm not sure how it's going to be like. I'm not sure how the situation has developed. If you're in Asia, you have the chance to scrim on the Korean ladder, which means that the LDL teams who are having the playoffs now will be looking for scrims, and they should be able to find scrims over there. Unlike when we had to go to Europe for MSI, where everybody's on holiday except for the MSI teams.
So out of the 8 teams, then who do you think will be the one team joining like the other who do you think is the best team, and who do you think is making it to the next stage?
No, I think I've said it already from Buffalo by I think quite a large margin. Simply because this is a team that you can't go, oh, but wait, they have this big hole over here. Whereas most of the other teams across the board, you can say that for them. I think maybe dark horses, going by my logic of okay, this is a complete team, they don't have a big hole, could be either be Vega Squadron or it could be DFM. But the thing about Vega Squadron, the reason why I say that is this is a cheese team, right? If you look at the match history, they play lots of mage bot lanes, they're playing lots of Nico, they're playing Karthus bot lane, and they're using this to cover for the hole. So it might be a hole, but they have a way to cover for it.
Okay.
And it can catch people off guard, especially in best of ones. So that's something that you might have to watch out for, Vega Squadron. And this has always been kind of the magnum opus of the Russian teams. Go in there, play your own style, be cheesy, be creative, and then, Albus Knoxmate top it at Worlds once. So you never know how far that might take you.
So
exactly. You hear that, Loco? Albus Knox made top 8 at Worlds.
I also did.
Yeah, it means fuck all, is my point. There you go.
We lost
your entire career accaccomplishments.
We lost to the best team in the tournament. Okay, we lost to Samsung White, and we took a game off them.
H2K.
Anyways,
because for people who don't know, by the way, Fongdu Vu Buffalo did actually get mad underrated last Worlds. Because first of all, everyone acted like, oh, they're just going to be trash. They're the only reason Flash Wolves didn't get out of groups and G2 did, because what happened is Fongvu at the end, people forget this, beat Flash Wolves, which meant there was a tiebreaker between G2 and Flash Wolves. Otherwise, it would have been Flash Wolves just going straight through. So it would have been completely different worlds potentially. So
no, people remember because of the Thank Mr. Buffalo meme, because everyone spammed that shit when G2 actually got to get out of the group. Okay, last question before we close off MSI. Does Fongbu Buffalo have a chance at beating TL or Flash Wolves?
I think this is going to be very dependent on what the meta shapes up to be like. If it continues to be where Zeros can continue to shine, I think it will be interesting to see how he goes up against Team Liquid, because this is going to be a race scenario, right? Where one team will play to the top side of the map, the other will play to the bottom, with Team Liquid playing towards Doublelift and Core JJ on the bottom side of the map. But I do think that this is stylistically a bad matchup for them, because I do think that when we talk about exploiting bot lanes, right? At the playing level, I don't think the bot lane will be able to be exploited. But at that level, when you're going up against Core JJ, when you're going up against Doublelift, I don't think Pellet and Big Coral will be able to hold their own. Because from what I've seen so far, and the way that they want to play, they won't get the amount of resources they need to kind of hold off Doublelift and Core JJ in the bot lane. Especially if Team Liquid decides to play for that. But it could come down to mid 2v2 as well. But Meliodas is been playing lots of skirmish junglers. It's very complicated, and I think it really has a lot to do with what the meta is going to be looking like. But even if it is a meta that favors Feng Fu Buffalo more, I think the NA teams, they have one thing going for them, this MSI, is that they have competent teams to play against in their own home region. Last year, when Team Liquid went over to MSI, I was doing the prep and I looked at it. Okay, we have a good chance of being Team Liquid. We have a good chance of beating Fnatic in the group stage itself, in the group stage round robin. And that's because I'm watching the games and it's like 100 Thieves. They're just losing to themselves. Like, why are they making these kind of plays? And then Team Liquid, they go over there. They have no idea what the MSI meta is going to be like. They're playing their own things with the Jin and all those kind of things, which is very different from what the Asian teams are playing. And they were just very slow to adapt. And that was the problem for Team Liquid. But this time around, they played a full series against TSM in the finals. They have the chance to play against, I think, like between Cloud9, TSM, and Team Liquid. They have their own chance to develop their own meta that is something functional, and not something where you just pick these champions, wait for the late game, and your opponents will lose the game automatically, which is what they were doing the whole of last year.
Right. Call me fucking Bruce Buffer, because it's time for the part of the show that everyone actually cares about, where they don't talk about the play-in. So there's loads of different topics we can actually talk about. What we'll do? Come on,
let me pick a topic. No, let me start the topic. Can I pick a topic?
No, because listen, is it going to be mega? Because the problem is there's a topic that ties into what he just said there.
Yeah, the TL analyst. What is
yes, that's what I was going to bring up.
Okay, exactly. Perfect. Great minds. Great. Okay,
right,
you lead.
Let's do this. So basically, a guy who I'm not familiar with him. He's the guy who is, as bio says, he's the head of analysis and the scouting department at Team Liquid.
So he used to be the Fnatic head analyst when they made their run last year at World Finals.
Okay.
So the infamous thing that he said that like he kind of gets memed on for is, for the finals, whoever wins the first series or first game was going to win the whole thing. Because he thought it was very momentum-based, very emotional-based. Okay. So he got memed to the end of the world because of that. Because he's like, yeah, if you win game 1 versus IG, then we would have won the whole series. So I don't want to take...
It's called amazing syndrome. He's got what we call an amazing syndrome, hasn't he? He just imagines... What he does is he's like some little Charlie in the chocolate factory motherfucker. Like, well, if I was to find a nickel, I could buy a chocolate bar. Maybe I find the fucking golden ticket. Next thing you know, I own the fucking factory. It's like, you haven't even got the fucking coin yet, amazing. So what if I did? It's like, anyway. Sorry, I just got triggered for a second.
I will read you the tweet. So
listen, we got to go one by one, though, because each of them is like, if anyone wants to talk mad shit on LS... Right, LS says the occasional naughty thing. This guy, it's like when he said his first comment, I thought, a little bit out of pocket, but you know what? Maybe he's got some good explanations. As I'm trying to dig around his account looking for explanations, I'm just finding more and more wacky shit. Like, it's gotten completely out of bounds. You know what, Loco? We actually fucked up. We should have had this guy on the show for like the next episode or something, because think about it, if he's going to make mad comments on Twitter like that, I'm pretty sure I could get this guy to fucking bury himself before the end of the episode. So anyway, first comment he said, right? We'll start with this one. Just start with this one. He goes, I'll read it in like a douchebag voice just to make it funny. I don't even know him. I suppose he might be a cool guy. He goes, pretty sure anyone sleeping at TL is going to be surprised as hell. We have the best or second best bottom lane in the tournament. Lol. He did the lol. I'm sure it looked exactly like that. So he is literally saying, this is fucking bold. Like, there's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how this plays out. Right? He's taking Team Liquid, who, if you know anything about MSI, it goes like this, right? People think 3 things at the moment. Either they're EU fanboys and they're like, G2 could do it, but IG's probably the favourite. Or they're from Korea and they're like, let's not forget about SK Telecom, whoever that might be. I don't know who that could be in the Korean scene. I think SK Telecom might be good. So anyway, or you think IG's the best because, you know, they've won worlds, etc. I don't know of anyone who's going like, tell you what, best not be sleeping on Team Liquid, y'all. They might fuck you up. I even said I think like Team Liquid, you know, has a chance to beat G2, for example, or do that. But I don't even think they're going to go that deep. So this guy makes the bold statement, not only are we sleeping on him, but he implies they could have the best bot lane the whole tournament. So let's think of the other bot lanes.
He said second best.
No, he said we have the best or second best.
Really? Wait, did he?
So he's leaving the possibility of the best, yeah. So remember, these are the bot lanes in the tournament. Okay. You have, fair enough. SK Telecom's bot lane is one that on paper looks monster. It's Teddy, best AD carry in Korea. Mata, I don't know if anyone would say he's the best exactly. I'd say him and Tussin were in contention for that status, right? So very good bot lane by all accounts. Just had a great finals. IG, admittedly, is known more for playing through their solo laners, but they have a bot lane that also puts up mad numbers. Baolan and Jackie Love. And then obviously G2's is the one that has like some asterisks because it's looking like Mickey X won't play. And even if Mickey X did play, Perks used to be a mid laner and who knows how we'll do it in Ashy. So the bizarre part about that is I think it's already a stretch to say that you know that they're better than the IG bot lane, but to imply that you even have any reason to think they're better than the SKT bot lane seems mad out of pocket. Like that seems like one of those classic moves where people are way too close to a team and they only can see the potential and all the great things that team could do, and they're looking at the other guy, just what he did in the game, and going, well, we could have beat. That's like it's like amazing as a coach, basically. So come on, Loco, what do you think of this initially?
I think this guy didn't really receive a lot of attention as the Fnatic analyst, and even as the TL analyst, he didn't receive a lot of attention. So, I mean, you can be really confident, and I do think it's good to be confident. They shouldn't go into the tournament thinking, oh, we're the worst team here. What if we should make sure we just don't embarrass NA? Like, they should be like, holy shit, like, people are sleeping on us. Like, we're going to do fucking well. But it is ridiculous to claim that you have the best or the second best. Like, second best, I do think there can be a reasonable argument for it. Like, Bao Lin and Jackie Love are not their primary focus at IG. They don't receive the same kind of resource, but they still are a good bot lane. But thinking of Double Lift and Core JJ and what they've been able to accomplish and the kind of dominance they have, I think you can make a sensible argument for them being second. But for being first, like over Mata and Teddy, that's fucking ludicrous. So
I think you guys are forgetting about the Flash vs bot lane.
Are they better? Are they better than TLs?
I think you can make a pretty good argument for that. Betty was somebody who showed up time at MSI last year as well. And currently Chelsea, the support is 6th on the Korean solo queue ladder, playing with 90 ping.
I couldn't even name their bot lane, so I mean I didn't even take Flash.
Yeah, so this is the typical Western thing. Oh, we're just gonna what's that region from Taiwan again? Yep, they don't exist unless you just do our rankings before them, and you insert them after the fact. Which is exactly what happened at MSI last year. Everyone's talking about that the 4 kings of the ball in and Betty comes in and destroys everybody.
And then okay, so I think the real crazy shit is when someone's like, Jack doesn't dilute, so someone replied to him, Jack doesn't dilute himself. He bases everything on analysis and is rarely wrong. The only time I can think is when Fnatic got bounced by IG. And then he replies saying, even then, it was whoever won the first game would win the tourney. Both teams were gassed, and if anyone says otherwise, they lying. Right, can't just see it in the player's face as well. Like I think that's fucking ridiculous.
No, that's not it. That's not even that interesting. That's just some stupid shit. Like I've made sadly I've never made a video on this, so I can't link to it. But like I think concepts like momentum and stuff like that need to be thrown out the window because all you really mean is this. When you feel like things are going well, you have the confidence to attempt something extra, and maybe that can work. But what they never bother mentioning is it can go the other way. Like, you know what? What's the worst feeling in the world? When everything's going great, you think you can go for something and it fails massively. Well, why didn't it help you? I thought momentum was a real thing. You would have been easier to do it. It's a purely psychological condition. It doesn't exist in real life. So as a result, psychological things only affect certain people susceptible to those psychological things. They don't affect everyone, do they? Like the idea you can just say, oh, my entire team works off momentum, and when we win the first game, we just win the others. It's like, no, you moron. First of all, I bet if you go and look at the stats in history, the person who wins the game one of a series wins the series majority of the time anyway, you dumb fuck. That's because if they're the better team, odds are they're going to win most of the games. Therefore, the odds they win the first game are higher, aren't they? So that's not even a great piece of analysis. The real wacky one is this, Loco. It's further down. Are you ready for some real fire? Because if you thought, like I said, like what you did there, by the way, I would have done the same thing, Loco. I also thought, well, you know, IG's bot lane doesn't really have to be played through all the time, so they probably get to pop off on the games that work for them, and the games they don't, you don't notice and they get carried. So I could have made that, like I did with LS's statement, I could have made it vaguely reasonable. This is the one that's going to blow your fucking mind and bake your noodle. Are you ready? He goes, someone said, do you really see any TL solo laner above competition? Because this is a joke. Barely made through NA finals while others were joking on stage. Are you ready? He says, lol, NA top 3 is better than EU top 3 teams.
I think that one isn't as ludicrous. I think the Fnatic IG one is fucking dumb.
mind.
I think the Fnatic IG one is fucking dumb. I think this one is like not as ludicrous.
Mate, Origin would have torn apart TSM and Cloud9's booty holes on stage. They'd have looked like they just had a fucking enema before the game began, the way they shit the bed. What are you talking about? Are you that far on?
We should make the Rift Rival bet. We should make a Rift Rival bet. I don't think NA is that far behind.
You know what? I'm going to feel really fucking bad in about 10 years when you die in some mad cult that like Reginald sets up and you and him just drink the fucking Kool-Aid and you're just dead. It's going to be so depressing because I'm going to know I could have come in and saved you and pulled you out of that life. But I just let you. You're like my degenerate rich son and I'm just like some businessman who's too busy to deal with your shit. So I'm like, just pay him whatever he needs, Jarvis. Get him the fuck out of my life. It's like, I feel bad now because that's how it's going to end for you. If you really believe TSM is better than Origin, I can't help you.
No, I don't. Okay, I don't think. Actually, I do think TSM is better than Origin.
I knew it. You know why, Loco? Listen, I'm going to get... You know what, Jensen? I have to, just 1 second, put him on the couch here in my like analysis room here. Because we need to get to the bottom of this. This is the thing, Loco. This is what we need to address. And it's once you make this breakthrough, everything can change for you, right? What you do is this. You do the same thing that this guy is doing with Team Liquid. Because you have a history with TSM, you already want them to be good. You want them to succeed if possible. You like Reginald, so you want the decisions he makes to have been right. You want success to come to him. So what you do is you think the best of the players and you look at when they're at their absolute peak and you think of what they could have done extra that would have been great. And you do all these things that unfortunately aren't really like analysis. Because analysis, I don't know if you know this, I'll have a very quick rant. Analysis, by the way, actually is part of a legendary alchemical formula called solve et coagula, which means solve means analysis. It means to break things down into their constituent parts to the smallest aspect. And coagula is to put them back together, hopefully synthesis in a greater manner that actually then creates something more than just those initial parts that you had. So your problem is you're not doing the first part. Before you can figure out what a team is, you have to break them down and you have to very rationally, in an almost a ruthless manner. This is why a lot of scientists basically showcase almost like sociopathic tendencies towards humans, animals, etc., because they have to be incredibly rational only. And what they do is they look at just what there is, the basic parts, the mechanisms, and then it's only later you can build it up and say, right, this is how this would behave or this would happen. So your problem is you're just coming in with like a candy-coated version of TSM. So I get it. That is their peak. I bet if we had to describe what could happen for TSM, you'd kill it. But like, what you've actually seen in the server does not warrant the idea that Origin is worse than TSM. Come on. Origin actually has shot calling. They can play from behind. They have a fucking functional jungler. They have everything, my dude. They have everything.
I think the hard part when it comes to analyzing TSM as the idealization you talked about, like people think the best of TSM and people think, whoa, this is the TSM that could be, because kind of the name, and also as you mentioned, I work for TSM and I'm friends with people on the team. But one thing that genuinely does make it hard to analyze TSM is they are the most rapid improved team in NALCS. The TSM that started and the TSM that ended Spring Split are two different teams.
Yeah, that's like if I got right. You know what, Loco? I'm just before the next season, I'm just going to gain £300, and then when I lose £150, you could be like, Thorin's the guy who lost the most weight of all the people in the League of Legends. It's like, yeah, because I started at £300. That's what TSM was at the beginning of the split. Some massive £400 mess, shitting himself, eating fucking baked beans straight out the can without even like actually cooking it. And then someone comes along and goes, right, come on, Tubby, time to get into shape. They make him do a fucking few runs on the block. Next thing you know, he's just a normal looking dude. Then he gets mildly buff, like fucking Acadian, where he like tenses his muscle. It looks like he's been working out loads, but he just puts 1 hour in with his 15 hours of league that atrophies all his muscles, except the fucking F key or whatever it is he's pressing. So like, you've just gone too far with it. Anyway, the problem here is we haven't got Jensen's take on it. So Jensen, there's a lot of crazy shit out there. What do you think of this aspect? Because you're a neutral party. You're not from EU or NA. What do you think? Are the top 3 NA teams better than the top 3 EU teams? What would your vote be?
I'm going to be honest, I don't watch NA at all. The first reason is that in Asia it's very difficult to watch NA because of the timing. And most of the time when I watch NA VODs and stuff like that, I just see somebody making, like, I don't understand what's going on and I just get angry and I turn off the VOD. And I don't really understand what they're trying to do in the games. But that tends to be the lower tier teams, right? And I do think, it's like my point earlier, the one advantage I think, the one difference that I think TL has over the other teams is that they actually have a competent competition this time around. It's not that everybody's just folding and rolling over to their own internal problems. But TL just like, yep, we have our shit together. We reach the top, and then what do we do when it comes to international competition? So I think it would be better for them. But when it comes to are the top 3 EU teams better than the top 3 NA teams, I always felt that I gain and I learn things from watching EU teams play. But I don't necessarily learn things when I watch any teams play. I just get angry and it's like, yeah, this is a waste of my time.
Here's what I want to do. I've got an LS type challenge I want to make for someone. We'll play a game. So in CSGO, there's a betting company. I won't mention their name, not as a diss, just because they don't sponsor us, so I won't mention their name. There's a betting company, right, that does a feature. It's called Pro or Low. And they get a pro player to watch like 5 clips, and he just has to guess. Like the nameplate's taken off the kills. They say, is it like a pro player that's doing this clip, or is it just a random scrub? And the point is, they make some of them tricky. Like they'll get like a really good clip of a random guy, and they'll get like an example of a pro making a really stupid mistake. They're trying to tell, like, can people actually tell this stuff? I'd love to play a game where you take people who didn't watch LCS at all. You take all the nameplates off, and it's called NA or minor region. And you show like a clip from like the Japanese league, a clip from NA. You show a clip from like this other league, clip from LMS. And you go, which one is it? And I bet you some of those NA clips would get dabbed on as like fucking absolute shitter regions. Because if you don't see the names, like, oh my God, that's Bjergsen. You're just going to watch it like, what a fucking terrible team fight that was. Like, why were they doing that? Like, why were they baiting the barn there? You're gonna have such a low opinion, it's unreal once you get those fucking TSM shades of, oh my God, without these glasses on telling me to obey. So, it's the wrong way around actually there, but whatever, they live. You know the reference I was making. So let's go back. He doesn't watch EU or NA, so we're going to... Is there anything else we're going to say?
Well, regarding like TLK and like his opinion and his thoughts, I think it's completely valid to have these kind of thoughts as an analyst for a team, but you can't vocalize them. I think there are just few positions within the org that's kind of allowed to put additional pressure for the organization and to make brash comments for the organization. Not to shit on analysts, and I do think analysts do a very important job. I don't think it should be analysts making these kind of comments. I think it can be players. I think it can be owners. I think it can be head coach if you are going to be like a huge part of the team. But outside of these positions, I don't want other people in the org putting on additional pressure for the players. Regardless of if it's true or not, this is putting additional pressure on TL and putting additional players on the players in a very rough MSI, in a very like rough international tournament. So that's where I have problems with it more so than the actual statements made.
Right, so Jensen, give me your take on this, because I'm going to give my take, but I want you to go first, mate. Go on. What do you think?
This is one thing I don't really understand, right? Like, why is like this pressure thing such a big issue with the Western teams? Like, every time I hear this, it's like, oh, the pressure was so big. The pressure. I mean, to be fair, I've never been on a TSM type of team before, so I don't know how bad the pressure is, but this always seems to be an excuse that comes up time after time, which I kind of feel is a little bit ridiculous. Mm-hmm. What's up with all this pressure? It's like, oh, is your family at stake or something? You're just gonna get flame on Twitter. I think especially on the talk show with yourself and Torrent, like handling this out pressure, you can talk about players who can't handle it, and it's like, this is okay. Maybe season 3 is your first time on stage and stuff like that. If you're a rookie player, maybe. But these are experienced players coming in. It's like day in, day out that you're talking about, oh, the pressure, I can't take it. I don't understand it.
I know. I'm with you on this one, mate. It's just one of those, right? You have to realise, here's the real problem, right? Is like, cause NA generally over the years didn't close that so-called gap, except by buying fucking Korean world champions. Because they didn't really close the gap. What they did in the meantime was just spend all the rest of their time fucking just doing mad mental gymnastics, trying to find ways in which they're like oppressed for having the most money. Like, I've even heard mad logic of like, but we got too much money. If it's like, oh, fucking hell, you guys could, like, an American could sit around. I mean, I was about to say as a ridiculous comment, an American could complain they have too much food. They literally complain about, oh, why are we all so obese? Put another burger in that fucking double stack. But are you fucking real? Like, it's just a joke of a country, isn't it? It's like everything they have that's an advantage, they spin it to like, this is a disadvantage for me having all this money and power and that. Like, how could I be expected to beat the mighty EU with all people who are making $100 a month. Like, yeah, fucking absolute jokes, isn't it? The absolute state of these excuses. Like, what is that? Like, oh, I don't want to put extra pressure on the champions representing the fucking league where you're supposed to try and show your region is better. So definitely don't say our region might be better because you might put pressure on them. I'm putting pressure on kids like a soccer mom. Shout out Vinny Paz, straight fire bars. No, are you even kidding me? Unless you're in the team. Like, I vaguely agree, right? If this was like, I would be more annoyed, Loco, if this was like Liquid 112. That might put a bit of pressure on you. But if it's just an analyst, I think it's fine. He's just adding a little bit of spice. He's trying to imply he knows something we don't. Like maybe he knows something how scrims have gone, or he knows how they should be able to play. I think it's pretty cool in that sense. Like if someone else came out and did it who was from like a Chinese team, I think that was cool as well. I mean, there was that time your boy Rapid Star tried to pop up on Twitter and fucking flame Kelsey Moser for a draft right like 6 months before he shit the bed completely in ADG, and I put that motherfucker 6 feet below the ground. I haven't seen him since again. Try and invite him on the show. I'd like some fucking barbecued Frost player if you could.
Okay.
I'll show him the fucking Azubu flame. Here's Azubu. You get where I was going on that one.
I'm just saying that the person that's going to receive the most flame when TL, if they don't do well at MSI, is not going to be this guy. It's going to be the owner. It's going to be the players. And I think those are the people in like the position to trash talk or in position to make comments. As an analyst, like you help the team a lot, but you're not in a position to make bold statements for the organization. Because once you have TL in front of your name, once you have whatever team in front of your name, you're speaking for the team. And an analyst's job isn't to speak for the team. That's the job of the players and the owners, or maybe the coach. So that's where I differ a little on it. Like, I think the comments are ridiculous, but I also think it's really ridiculous coming from an analyst.
Whatever. He only has here's the real problem, and this is what he probably didn't understand, is he only has 2,000 Twitter followers. So in his mind, he's thinking well, what's the big deal? I'll just say to my Twitter followers what I think. But what he doesn't understand, which no one does until they're part of something blowing up completely, is obviously if you put any tweet out there, you could have one follower, but if the right person sees it, they can quote tweet it, they can retweet, they can make a thread as someone did on the League of Legends sub. So his big problem is, I'm sure in his little world where he's normally making comments, is people who follow him, so they're probably fine. He didn't realize though this would blow up completely because it's the downtime, there's nothing going on, so we have nothing else to discuss, do we? So I think he's probably just inexperienced on that one. Okay. He'll get bonked over the head a few times. We'll see.
Dorian, all right, move us on.
We'll have him on a future episode if we can.
Okay,
it sounds like it could be fun.
I'll invite him.
Sounds like it could be good. Right.
Let's do another topic.
What's a good topic at the moment? What's going on in the world of League of Legends?
Echo Fox is a huge one.
Oh, yes. So here's the story for people who don't know, basically. Because I've noticed this is one of the problems with drama, is nowadays people really don't click articles and they really don't read articles. They click articles, they see headlines, they see the first paragraph. They don't check the actual details. Because I've seen this mentioned wrong multiple times. Here's what happened. There was a story published by Richard Lewis with Desertor, which said that Echo Fox, the CEO of Echo Fox, or founder, or whatever his name is, Rick Fox, obviously the person the team's named after, 3-time NBA champion, was going to be stepping away from the organization because internally within the organization, someone who was a shareholder of the company had, through an email, said, I think he'd said the N-word to Jace Hall, who used to be the general manager of the team at one point in time. This is a while ago. And this is the key aspect. It also was referenced that somehow he'd also abused Rick Fox. But the key mechanism is this. This is the key part to understand. It wasn't just that the guy said it, but the implication was that the organization wasn't going to do anything significant about it. They weren't going to punish this person. They were just going to let it die, or they just didn't think it was a big deal. So because it was a big deal to Rick Fox, he was saying, right, I'm out. I'm just done with Echo Fox. I'm going to leave completely. After that, yes, then Echo Fox did actually come out and say, we will look into this and we will take out steps to disassociate this person with our company. So after they were caught and exposed, they did say they would do something about it. And then there's a third element, but we won't go into that massively here because we already did the whole fuck the Riot mods, Reddit mods one before I slip there. We did the whole fuck the Reddit mods one maybe a month ago, right? So you don't need to retread that classic. You can go back to that episode and find out why fuck them up a tree. So the point was, there was a whole thing where they removed it from Reddit, and so people might not know those details. But anyway, the key thing about the mechanism is that it's part of the problem isn't just even the guy saying the slur. It's that he said it and then the org didn't seem to respond, or they didn't respond to Rick Fox's level that he wanted anyway. So what do you think about this, Jensen, actually, as an outsider? What do you think on this topic? Big drama.
I honestly don't know what's happening in esports organizations in the West, but I think that because of how new the industry is and how it attracts two very bad types of people. The first is con men, and the second is very immature people into the industry. And basically, from all my experience, there's not been a proper HR department that can really handle things properly in esports, and that's my experience in Asia in general. And I'm not sure what HR is like in other places, because in a proper company, you have a HR person to go around and do like sensitivity training and all these kind of things, and say that you're not supposed to do these kind of things. And if an email like that will have been sent out, the due course of action will be to send it to HR, and then HR will take care of the person and then take the steps necessary. But I think that this is also part of the reason why we don't see females in esports, because teams, they just don't have the capacity to handle and hire HR people, which I think is increasingly becoming very appalling, considering they are paying these people this amount of money and the stakes are this big.
Sure. Right, let's be serious initially, Loco. So give your real thoughts, and then we'll make loads of memes and jokes. So keep going. Go on.
I think it's ridiculous that shareholders are referring to Jace Hall or other people regarding racist wars, and it's also
I didn't mention it, by the way, but because this obviously is key content you need to know. But the fact that he called him the N-word is particularly significant because Rick Fox himself is obviously African American. In fact, actually, I think his ethnicity is actually from maybe the Caribbean or something. I believe his mom or something's from there. And then Jace Hall, I'm only going by sight here. I believe that Jace Hall is also African American or something along those lines. Is that correct?
It's just, in my opinion, incredibly dumb. You can disagree with someone, you cannot like someone, but don't use the racist wars, because it will turn everyone against you. Maybe, I'm not saying it did. Maybe Jace Hall and maybe Rick Fox has been running Echo Fox badly. I'm not saying they did, but...
The point, Loco, you're making here, I'll make a quick analogy, okay? It would be
Can I get a quick clarification?
Yeah, go on.
Was it revealed that it was said in a very demeaning way, or was it said in a casual, but you're not supposed to do it?
No one knows, but the thing is, kind of I believe it was implied they were arguing, it was getting heated in the emails, and then the guy... So I know what you mean, I don't think it was implied in a
okay, what I want to make...
But anyway, the point that quickly says this, the point Loco was making there, which is a good point, is it would be very different if you were... Oh, wait, what was your point that you said again?
The thing is, if I'm arguing
I'll give you the analogy. Here's the analogy he was making, which is before we even get into the racism aspect, it's just not a good way to communicate, because it's like if you were having an argument with a woman, right, and she was really annoying you, and she's making disingenuous points, and she lies even, and it says you're a dickhead. If you then say, "Oh, fuck off, you whore," right, she might then react to the word whore, and all of a sudden everyone will be against you, and you're the bad guy. Whereas maybe you were making a good point before that. So actually, Loco's got a very reasonable point there, which is maybe this guy in the argument was even in the right. But as soon as you go to a slur like an N-word against a black person, you're automatically in the wrong as well. You're going to be in big trouble. It's going to be all about that as well, not your point.
Even if they are in the complete wrong, the moment you use the N-word, you cannot, people can't side with you. Just don't use the N-word. Maybe they did fuck up. Maybe they were being dumb about stuff. Maybe they weren't running the org the right way. I'm not saying they did any of these things, but don't fucking use the N-word. If you're arguing with a gay person, don't use the F-word. These are just fucking common sense stuff. The moment you use these words, and the moment you say them, you lost the argument, and people can't side with you, and it's a PR disaster. And it's so easy for the other side to point at you and be like, oh, this guy is a racist. Oh, this guy is a blah, blah, blah. This guy is a blah, blah, blah. Just don't use these words. You live in fucking America. You should know. Ugh. I just find it incredibly stupid that an investor would use these words. Obviously he's using a slur because he's disagreeing with something that Jace Hall did, or he's disagreeing with something that Rick Fox did. Don't use these words. You can be you can call them dumb, you can call them idiots. There are so many words you can call them. You can call them incompetent. There's so many words you can use to signify your displeasement with them. Just don't use that word, and you can have a conversation, and you can have that email. It just, it blows my mind.
Can I get a quick take on this? So this is one of the things I don't understand about outrage culture and the West, right? I mean, I grew up in Singapore. I'm currently in Singapore at the moment, and we're kind of this mix of East and West at the moment. And the thing is that it's this when I read about this, I felt that it was an excuse to leave the thing behind larger problems that were going on behind the scene. Like this is probably, it sounded like a last straw kind of thing. But then again, sometimes when I look at the way outrage culture is, like, are you going to make a multi-million-dollar decision because somebody said the N-word? Is it really that ridiculous? Or is there something that we're missing over here where there's something very wrong going on in Echo Fox with all the things that are happening with the League of Legends roster, whatever that happened at the start of the year. And then this is basically them having an argument. And then this is the way that Rick Fox says that, you know what, screw you guys. And you say this, and this is the best evidence for me to sink the ship with you guys still inside it.
Because you're from like an Eastern background, I'll tell you how bad it can be in America and how dangerous it is. So, and you just can't say stuff like this. So do you know James Gunn? He's the director of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
So he said certain words in the past and he voiced certain viewpoints in the past on Twitter long time ago. And when those resurfaced, he got let go of being the director of Guardians of Galaxy 3. He eventually got reinstated. But first, it was, the outroar was fucking insane. And this guy got let go of his job because he said those in the past. He didn't say it recently. He said it in the past. And it was in.
But that was a public statement, right? This was with regards to internal emails being circulated.
Yeah, here's the difference.
There's a pure cost to that one.
The difference here really is this. What he's saying is, think about this from Rick Fox's perspective, right? Did Rick Fox really see this situation and say, right, well, since someone's called me or someone associated me with the N-word, I won't accept that. So I'm just going to throw this entire company that I presumably believed was one day going to be worth a lot more money and that I've already invested money into. I'm just going to throw that in the bin and just say, goodbye, I'm off. Or did this whole situation happen and in the background there was an ambience that maybe Rick Fox wasn't into this project anymore? Maybe the fact that the team's not very good, that they've made all these massive signings over the years and they haven't really had the success. Maybe all of that made him already think like, I don't really know where this is going. And then this thing happened and he was like, oh, fuck that then. If that's going to happen as well, yeah, I'll just leave now then. This is a good moment for us to just leave it there. I don't want any part of it. Like, that's not even an unreasonable, like, almost like conspiracy theory, because I kind of agree, sort of, because I would even go another way. There's another side to the same argument, basically, which is that it wasn't really just this thing happening and Rick Fox saying, well, my principals say I could never be around someone who's racist. Because really, if it's possible, as they implied in their follow-up statement, Rick Echo Fox, that they're going to somehow like remove this person or give him his money back and sell his shares back to him, whatever it might be. If that's possible, then logically, here's what you should ask yourself. Why didn't Rick Fox, if he owns the team or was a founder and has a lot of power and likes the team, why didn't he just say that, right, I will leave or remove this person? Either he did do that and they said, well, actually, we'll side with this person. And it wasn't until it went public, because notice it didn't go public anywhere. Like he says here, this is all internal, but it got leaked to the right journalist, didn't it? Either that's what happened, or maybe he really did just do it purely on a point of principle. The point is, these all three are actually plausible, I think. They're all just different perspectives. Really, you could ask yourself, how much did it mean to Rick Fox in this scenario? Because like he says, the reason why the James Gunn guy was fired is because that's public pressure being put upon the company. Yeah. There was no public pressure until after Rick Fox had said he was going to leave. So the timing is a little bit different on that, like the order.
I guess a little bit of context is, it was revealed that Rick Fox bought shares and bought more shares in the company to make sure he can have more control, to make sure he can be more invested earlier this spring. So he's not someone that was looking to get out. He was someone that was looking to get more invested into Echo Fox. So maybe the spring to summer was so fucking bad that he changed his mind by this point.
Okay, that makes it a bit more plausible.
But he was buying into it in the start of spring. Like, this is not an easy decision to make. So he must have been like fucking outraged.
Sure. I mean, I will say, by the way, if he didn't leave for any single reason, if it really was out of a matter of principle, I have utmost respect for that. I actually made a tweet to him along those lines, because I tell you what, this is one of the saddest things about the modern day. Like, you know that concept of virtue signaling, where what you do is you say something publicly and it's actually for effect. You're not saying it because you believe it. You're saying it because you want people to think that you believe it and that's your opinion, so that you get like brownie points, that they go, oh, wow, what a very what an enlightened opinion you have on women or something, Well, what's sad is that concept, people know it when it's a really extreme version. They don't seem to realize that's almost what everyone who's on Twitter and social media does all the time. Like, we all talk about our morals and what's acceptable and what I would do if I was in his situation. But none of you ever know that. Like, nobody really knows what they would do until they were in that situation. They're actually tested. Like, your morals and your code of conduct is really just an idea in your mind that you like at the moment when you're thinking about it. But if someone put you in that situation and offered you a bribe, or said, for example, I'll fire you if you do this, maybe you would do the thing that you claim you wouldn't. Maybe under pressure you wouldn't, or maybe you'd think, oh, well, there's no point me just giving up my team, is there? Because, you know, it's my team. Why would I leave? He should, like, that's all well and good to say. It's like the people in the comment section. Have you ever seen a video posted on YouTube where someone's like, you know, having a fight on a subway, or someone's being really aggressive? Every comment is like, I'd have just knocked him out. I'd have ducked under his punch. It's like everyone's a fucking hero, aren't they? Because when they're privately, they're just imagining what they do. But in the real life situation, who knows what people would do? That's why, like, I don't want to hear some fat old guy who's 47 like, Brad Pitt cheated on Angelina. What would I do if I had that woman? You'd never have that woman, you fucking tobblard. Like, think it through, would it? You don't know what you'd do. You don't even know what you'd do if a fucking goat winked at you nicely when you walked down the fucking lane, you daft cunt. So anyway, the point I'm getting to is that everyone wants to make out that they do that. But there's very few people would walk away from a massive venture like this. Something they've invested a lot, has their fucking name on the brand. And the potential, I don't believe this, but other people do, to one day be worth billions of dollars. Who would walk away from that? I tell you who would. A man of actual principle. Someone who believes that when you think something is wrong, you take a stand against it, even if that has a personal cost. No, a lot of you wouldn't know anything about that, motherfuckers, but I'm about that life.
Why do you fucking flame me for coaching TSM or like making bad decisions? If you've never been in that position, you never had that kind of pressure.
I don't understand what he meant there. No, because you know what? I know he meant that as a half joke. So first of all, I just give him a very small golf clap. Like, it was a decent effort. That doesn't make any sense, because I clearly said, and Jensen will understand what I'm saying here, I said people talk about what they would do in that situation. I've never claimed what I would do if I coached TSM. Like, I've never ever made that like assertion, never even imagined it, because I'm not mentally ill. Like, why would I imagine putting myself in that sort of a situation? If I was going to coach someone, I'd probably coach a good team like Cloud9, probably win the fucking LCS, probably win Worlds. But aside from that, let's not get into that right now. Because I mean, if Reaper can fucking get this team that far, I'd probably just win Worlds or something. So anyway, because I actually know, like, you know, that global meta doesn't exist, and I'm not like a relic of season 2 like you two bumfucks. So anyway, the point is, I'm just criticizing what you did do. I will always give the benefit of the doubt, like you do, by the way, to coaches. Like, if they have a good reason, like, well, actually, you know, behind the scenes, yeah, fair enough. Whatever. It was a decent attempt, but you didn't do it properly.
So, okay. Another topic. Riot Games recently switched their logo all of a sudden. And 10-year anniversary for League of Legends is this year. I think this is the year that Riot releases their game 2. I think it has to be this year.
The sequel to League of Legends, you mean, or a second game?
Second game. I think Riot will release a second game this year.
We just went from let's not do conspiracy theories into that's...
No, it's not a conspiracy theory. They switched their logos. It's a 10-year anniversary for League. I think this would be the year that Riot releases their second game. I'm
just waiting for them to finish making one good game that actually has like functional code, and that like fucking Kobe, when he casts, isn't coded as minions or something so that he says the wrong thing. Fucking so many memes stacked in there. I'm a master at what I do. Keep going.
It's confirmed that they are making multiple games and they've been talking about it, but I think this is the year that they'll announce something and something will get revealed.
Well, the rumour always was behind the scenes. There's 2 main games everyone knows about. So they did have a game that was a card game, but being as Riot Games are idiots, when Hearthstone came out, they just fucking dumped that card game. We're like, how could another card game ever succeed? Yeah, because that never happened, did it, Artifact? So anyway, then they were working on a game that was like a CSGO type FPS game, and they actually hired, if you remember, a guy who came from CS called Volcano, who once upon a time was a 1.6 in CS Source Pro. He also took part in helping design the map DE Cache, if you've ever played CSGO. So they hired him, and he supposedly was working on an FPS game, but they hired him years ago at this point in time. And every rumour was like, there was always 2 sets of rumours. There's the people who always kept saying, oh, it's going to come out soon, it'll be really good. And then the other set that were like, I think it's not being properly worked on, it's probably going to get jettisoned. So do you have any info as to what sort of game it could be, Loco?
So as you said, the 2 big rumors are it's an FPS game because of the CSGO hiring, as you mentioned. And then the other thing they did was they bought out a fighting game studio. So the 2 big rumors are it's a FPS game and it's a fighting game. Those are the two major ways it can go. A lot of people talk about, MMORPG, a League of Legends MMORPG. I don't think it's in the cards, and I don't think it's likely. I think their second game will be a fighting game or be a FPS game.
Can I check what's the timeline of them acquiring the fighting game studio, and what's the timeline of them hiring the FPS guy?
The FPS guy, I don't know, but the fighting game has been for a long time. It's been like 4 or 5 years, somewhere between there.
So there's a conflicting piece of evidence here, right? Is that the whole drama of Tencent thing where Tencent say that, hey, you know what? The mobile market is super big in Asia, and if you wanted to do a second game, let's do a mobile game. You guys can take this Arena of Valor thing. It was called Wang Zhe Rongyao in Chinese, and then make that into League of Legends Mobile, right? And then there's the whole lawsuit with the Mobile Legends thing going on as well. And this seems to indicate to me that Riot Games, they're not so much interested in being like Blizzard, like being a traditional game publisher, and they are more of like a company driving esports, and a second game is not going to be very high on their priority or to-do list. It might be something that, okay, that's something that's cool, and they might only do it if it was a supplement to the main game. So if they're hiring like card game people, I could see that, yeah, maybe a League of Legends type of card game might be a thing. But if they're going to be doing an entirely separate, different title, it's not consistent with the steps that they've been taking and the general direction.
So the steps they've been publicly taking, maybe so, but privately, like them buying out these companies, and they've also very publicly said they're trying to put the S in Riot Games. Like they want to be a multi-game company, and that's the only way they can survive. Like every game has a shelf life. Like if they invest everything into the league and never look back.
What they should do is put the fucking replays in replay value of the game and give us fucking replays about 10 years into the game.
We already finally did get replays, but whatever. Like they do want to make a second game, and for the good of the company and for the future of the company, especially like if Tencent does put pressure onto them, their next step should be to make a second game, not to invest more into League of Legends. So I think it's going to be a second game, and I'm actually pretty excited, and I have a lot of hope for Riot, because one of the rumors that was circulating and one of the things that people said internally with Riot and why League has taken a downturn is the best people in Riot don't want to work on League of Legends, and the best people in Riot want to work on other games, and that was the problem they were having, keeping A-class people working on League of Legends and all the A-tier players wanting to go work on the other game, and all the B-tier people wanting to work on League of Legends. So whatever their second game is, I'm super excited for it, and I hope it is successful, and I hope it is an absolute quality product. Funny
thing is though, like making an FPS game sounds like a really bad idea, because not only are there a billion FPS games out there, but like Counter-Strike isn't number one FPS game in esports because it's the best. It's because it has like a ridiculous advantage, doesn't it? It's like if you tried to release an RTS game now, how are you going to beat StarCraft 2, or when they inevitably they'll bring out Warcraft 4 eventually? Like you're not going to beat these games unless your game is way better and has some sort of like grassroots, like loads of player base, like the battle royales had. Basically, you have to have so many people playing, so much interest that it overcomes your disadvantage in branding and traditional brand loyalty. And so Counter-Strike just has way too much of a hold over the sort of person who plays those FPS games. And I'll tell you right now, if Valve actually released a good FPS and it started to take from CS, that would just be when Valve made CS2 or made CS on a new engine or something. That would be their impetus to go to the next level and release some shit. So I actually think it makes way more sense for Riot to do either a card game or a fighting game, and here's why. Because if you do a card game or a fighting game, do it like Blizzard did with Hearthstone. Just use the same characters. So in the same way as Nintendo puts all those characters in Smash Brothers, that was like Link and fucking Mario, just put the League of Legends characters in a fighting game. Just put the League of Legends characters in a card game. It would be a great crossover to your shit.
I think fighting
game... Or you could just play top lane.
I think fighting game is actually a huge avenue and a huge open space for Riot, because all the fighting games out right now honestly suck. They really, really do suck, and I really wish Riot does what Hearthstone did for card games for fighting games. Like Hearthstone lowered the barrier of entry for fighting games so much, or not for fighting games, for card games. Like before Hearthstone was a thing, Magic the Gathering Online, like the client was so fucking shitty, and it was absolute fucking garbage. Like it was so hard to play Magic Online,
and you had to buy the cards, and they were the full price and everything. It was a terrible system. Yeah, they had a terrible publication.
By lowering the barrier of entry and making it so available to everyone, and also using IP that was already existing from Warcraft, like it was so. it was going to be a success no matter what. Like right now, if you want to get into fighting games, if you want to get into Smash, like even with Smash Ultimate, right? Smash doesn't have developer support. Nintendo barely supports Smash. And then they started to do that with Ultimate, but before Ultimate, they didn't support any of Smash. So even though it was getting crazy numbers, it wasn't getting support from Nintendo, and fighting games are notorious for players being poor. So I think if Riot supports their next fighting game, lowers the barrier of entry, it has a real shot at being a huge player in this space.
So here's an interesting tidbit about card games, and since you brought up Magic the Gathering, one of the big lead artists on Riot is Jason Chan, and he actually drew some of the most iconic cards in Magic the Gathering, which is one of which is Jace the Mind Sculptor, for those of you who follow Magic the Gathering. So I actually think that he would be really cool if you could ever get a Rioter to come on and talk about art direction and stuff like that. This guy is absolutely smurfing.
Well,
just a random fact out there, because I think that people don't appreciate his art enough. This is the same guy who drew like the splash art for like Karma, Caitlyn, Riven, and he drew some of the most iconic cards in Magic the Gathering.
I think card game would be a kind of, I don't like it as much as fighting game because the space is taken up so heavily by Hearthstone, and also now Magic the Gathering Arena, their online client, their new online client for Magic the Gathering is really great. So that space is so filled up, and Magic the Gathering has like a history spanning over 20 years, and Hearthstone and Warcraft has a history on its own. Like it would be a very, very rough scene to come into, where fighting games, it's way more wide open, and like Smash has just done a terrible job of actually supporting the game itself and supporting tournaments.
I think you maybe pushed that point a little bit too far. Like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat are pretty old franchises. Like they're pretty entrenched as well. Like new Street Fighter games always going to be played. Tekken. There's a lot of big brands in Street Fighting games. But what I will say is one area where you might be right is they do seem in fighting games actually pretty open to trying all the games. Like you notice there's a bazillion fighting games that are covered in all those different games. I know when E-League started doing it, they've had all of them. They've had like Injustice, Mortal Kombat, like all sorts of different games, Marvel vs. Capcom and stuff. So I vaguely agree. The main problem I have with it is just like, I just don't really care. Like, it's a bit like when someone, I'll give you the analogy I have for Riot making another game. It's like back in the day, I know this won't make sense to modern kids now because it's not like this, but in the old school days of Hollywood, normally when you made a movie, you just made a movie. That was it. It's a piece of art. You try to put everything you can into that one thing, and that's it. So if they ever made a sequel to a movie in Hollywood back in the 80s or the 90s, it was nearly always a cynical cash-in. Like, you know, it might not even have the main star of the original movie. It might not even be directed by the original director. Sometimes they literally just take the IP rights and get someone for cheap to make a cash-in, knowing that some people who like the first movie or watch the sequel like, well, I'll give it a go. And then if it isn't any good, whatever. And sometimes they'd even be mega cynical. It wouldn't even be on the cinema. It would just go straight to video. So like if I ever heard that was happening, then I wouldn't care. I wouldn't watch the sequel. If it doesn't have anyone that I know that was in it and all the people who were good that were behind it weren't involved, then why would I give a fuck? So my main problem is this, two factors. One, I don't know of anyone in Riot Games who I know to have a rep as some brilliant designer or, you know, like genius. There's no fucking John Romero. Like, there's no guys who are like visionary people to my knowledge in Riot Games. And then secondly, I'm going to say it just because none of y'all are going to say it and none of y'all are even thinking it because you're so cocked by League of Legends. But I don't know if you're aware of this. Riot have barely made one fucking game. They took a game called Defense of the Ancients, a map in Warcraft 3, and they made a sort of watered-down version without a lot of the core mechanics, and they made it look really cute so that girls would want to play it. That's about what Riot Games did. So I'm waiting for them to make one game on their own. Now, you're telling me they're going to make a game and they're not even sure which game to copy this time. Do they copy Hearthstone or do they copy CSGO? See what I mean? I don't give a fuck. So until they've got like 10 bazillion people playing it and there's loads of money and I come into the scene and everyone's a mad pussy and I go, I could take this Travis bitchman motherfuckers, this guy's job. I mean, contribute to the scene because I wouldn't take anyone's job. Then until that happens, I'm not going to care.
You don't think Riot...
A lot of that was internal dialogue. I shouldn't have said all that out loud.
You don't think Riot's second game will have a huge following just by it being Riot?
Oh, like I said about the sequel, I'm sure some people will play it just because it's Riot. It's just that isn't enough to make a game succeed nowadays, you know. Like if you all you need to know is this. I've made this point in the past. It's a very shrewd point if you think about it. There's 2 points to think about here. One, every single number one game in esports, like the game that gets the most attention, is considered like it's on top now. So League of Legends the last few years, people might argue CSGO was maybe the most recent years. Whatever the game is, it's always a different genre. It's never the same one as before. And so as a result, you can not only never predict what game is going to be the next biggest game, but the second point, and this is a really interesting one, I made a video on my channel about this, is all the game studios have had a game be number one that wasn't even their game. So for example, League of Legends basically had a version of Dota become the biggest game in the world. You think Blizzard weren't just sitting around like, why the fuck didn't we have that? We had that game, that was ours, that was Dota, but they didn't have it at the time. So you think of some of the other games out there. I mean, obvious example would be, let me think, who else was on that? Oh, Blizzard now. Blizzard's big game now is Overwatch, right? Overwatch is basically Team Fortress, which originally used to be way back in the day Quake. It was a mod of Quake. That's the concept, which eventually becomes Overwatch, but they did like the Riot approach of putting it all cutesy and anime and about a billion female characters so that women play the game again. So, like, it's actually very, very hard to predict who's going to make a great game. And even if you do, it's even harder to predict who's going to be like a relevant esports game. It's almost impossible to guess, Loco. I wouldn't claim to guess what the next big game is going to be. That's the only one I knew wouldn't be, was like Fortnite. And that's just because its success is exactly based on not being esports, you know. So that was the only reason I knew that wouldn't be huge. Any other topic?
Well, since you brought up Overwatch, let's talk about that. Overwatch had their first home game in Dallas, I think, or in Texas. I'm not sure if it was actually in Dallas, with the Dallas Fuel home game, and then like hosting the whole tournament in Texas, or hosting that week in Texas, and it was pretty successful. What's your thoughts on leagues and franchises and regionalization, like actually being like LA, TSM, NYC, Cloud9? Like, is it going to be successful for Overwatch, and is that the future of franchises in general?
What do you think, Jensen?
Sorry, what's the question? How successful do you?
What do you think about like doing like geolocation? Like, instead of just being in a league, you're from this team, so like I'm from the Macau or something, like you're from a specific place. Like, what do you think of regionalization as an approach to esports?
I'm not sure. So this is like the mechanics of the economics of esports, and from what I know is that I mean, EVOS is a team in the black, right? And the way that they operated is kind of like running it like a social media influencer agency that specializes in gamers, and geolocation does very little to help that, because like now we're talking about the digital age where everybody's just watching games online, and unless you are talking about moving things where you can provide a very competitive, very compelling offline experience to an audience that's very used to consuming things online, I don't really get the advantages towards geolocation, unless you're talking about, I think the only team back to League of Legends context, the only teams that might benefit from this is in Europe, where you can geolocate and then you can reach out to specific language bases. But if you're talking about just English consuming audiences, I don't think it makes sense.
Yes, I'm with Jensen. Like, I can sort of understand why you might want to have a French team that can get specifically only French sponsors that wouldn't sponsor a random LCS team or LEC team. That makes sense. Aside from that, I think it's a trash concept. Like, I don't think it works at all. And I've found the most effective way to ask a question that shows if people are full of shit when they say that they think it's going to succeed. Here's the question I ask everyone. So whenever everyone says, like, for example, this game here, the Dallas Fuel's home game, it said on Twitter, someone said it was sold out at 5K. But actually what they did was, Richard made a whole video about this. They had an activation there where there was a GameStop shop that if you went in and bought any item, you got free tickets to this game. So that wasn't a 5K sold out event. That's not a genuine, transparent statement at all. That's a very disingenuous statement. So my question is always this. If you believe you can have teams that have a home region so that they can have home games and get all the economics in their region in, show me the flow of economics. So when they have a home game, so in the Overwatch League, they sometimes have viewing parties. Like New York might have a viewing party for the NYXL. What they do is they'll show a picture of like 300 people drinking drinks. Yeah, love New York. I always say the same question every time. Just tell me how much the tickets were and how many people bought tickets. It's a standard question in combat sports, boxing, mixed martial arts. The question is, what was the gate? Was it $7 million and that was for 20,000 people and you divide up the ticket price? That's all I need to know. Because as soon as you can show me that like 2,000 people bought a ticket for $30. Now we're talking. Now you can have geolocation. At the moment, nobody has proven that you can consistently have week on week geolocation. Do you know why I know, Loco?
Why?
I'm going to give you a great example. When you think about it, it's going to bake your noodle. If geolocation works, Loco, then how come in Korea all esports takes place in Seoul, right? It's all in Seoul except the odd final that's elsewhere, right? All the games are played in the same studio in Seoul, whether that's in StarCraft or League of Legends or whatever it might be. They're all in a studio, right? And to this day, even with television channels running gaming content all day long, they have never managed to make big money off the live attendance of those games. In fact, you can sometimes go to LCK games and it won't even be full. And that's only a few hundred people can fit in that arena. Maybe, 1,000 now? If they can't even get 1,000 in a metropolis like Seoul, where there's amazing cheap transport to travel anywhere in the city, and you're supposed to have millions of people playing the game, watching the game, programming, and you can't get anyone to buy a motherfucking ticket, how are you going to do geolocation for like Boston? How are you going to do geolocation for somewhere in fucking Frankfurt? It ain't going to happen, is it? It's just unrealistic. No one. It's like saying, oh well, when we're on the moon, when we're on Mars with our bases, we'll do all these businesses. Wait a minute, has anyone gone to Mars? Oh, never mind that. When we're on Mars, what we'll do? It's like you haven't done the first step.
I think geolocation is hard, and for Korea, I mean, people are mentioning China a lot, where LPL already does that, and some of their home game and away games are successful. But China is a different world entirely due to the amount of people that watch and like how popular League of Legends is there. I think next step for NA is East and West. I would at least like to see them split into LA and New York City, like East Coast, West Coast, where it's more regular that way, and not everything is just around LA. I think it is ridiculous, like how central California is to esports, and especially the Santa Monica, Los Angeles area, and at least splitting East Coast, West Coast is the next step before we go city by city by city. And that's kind of what I hope that Overwatch would do, instead of going all the city by city by city, just going region by region.
Poor Loco hasn't thought it through.
Okay, tell me why I'm dumb.
Here's why you haven't thought it through, right? Because here's what's different about League of Legends, which would actually kill that idea. I know where you're coming from, that idea, but here's the biggest problem I have, right, Loco, is because there's only one server in North America, who the fuck wants to be the guy who's the furthest from the server? Why am I ever going to opt into being that franchise? Oh, I'll be the one that's miles away from the server, so my players can't fucking practice with a decent ping. That's the flaw, isn't it? Like, the difference is in games like other games like CSGO, there's a billion servers, they get automatically generated, but League of Legends, because it has the whole rank thing, it's always going to be a limiting factor in my opinion.
Don't worry. If you do New York and LA, both sites will get shitty ping. And until you actually, until you actually go into specific states and specific cities, if you do New York and LA, both sides will have 80 ping.
So this is the plan, right? You put people at 80 ping, and then forever we will have the excuse that NA has got bad ping, so we can't play solo queue, and that's why we can't do well at World.
Wait, you don't think that's the next step, Doran? I think that is the next step for League of Legends, at least for LCS.
Oh, here's the thing. I'll say
this is the opposite of the next step.
Let me put it this way.
I think this is
why it is the next step. It's the next step because at the moment, right, I was basically making a larger point, which is that esports doesn't have a very monetizable audience at the moment. Like, no one really's figured out how to get people who watch the game to spend a lot of their money in the same way as if I watch the NFL, I buy the NFL pass, I watch any games I want to. That's way more than I spend on League of Legends, because I spend nothing on League of Legends. So what no one's figured out is how to get the fans to pay. There's one group of people we figured out how to get paid, the fucking owners. We can con those guys all day long. I always say this, the main customer of the Overwatch League isn't the fans. You're paying almost nothing on the Overwatch League. The main customer of the Overwatch League are the people who paid 20 million for a spot. They're the ones you better keep happy, and that you better keep reeling along that there's a bigger future coming and everything's getting better and better. And anything that's a problem now, we're going to fix. Sure things. Oh, it's just around the corner, guys. Somebody got bar tomorrow, at your bottom. It's all that sort of shit, So the point is, the reason why it is the next step, and Loco's right, is I'm sure Riot wants someone to pay $10 million for the fucking Boston server and for the Chicago server and for they want these people to buy that franchise. That would be a great way to get more money into League. The problem is, can you ever turn a profit on it? Can the LCS in that world ever be black and make actual money, which means make money, by the way, on a ledger? Can it ever live in that world? Probably not, I would say, unfortunately. Well, or at least it hasn't been shown. I don't think it's impossible, but no one's figured out the way to do it. Like, there's a lot of things in the world. Like, obviously, we've seen with technology that can change the world, but the problem is you have to come up with the genius idea that makes it work. Just the concept isn't enough. And at the moment, no one's figured it out really. Because remember, this is the point I always make about geolocation. Where's the other league in any sport that started as a central global league and went backwards and put down roots into all the areas and has a city of this, and it's massive? I'm not aware of any. Every single league I'm aware of that's geolocated came the opposite. It started in a city and worked its way out and became part of a region, became part of a league, and became part of a global thing. It went the opposite. So I've never seen anyone go in reverse. So might not be impossible. I've never seen it happen though.
Then what do you think will happen with Overwatch League? They said they want to be geolocated.
I think it's in deep shit, man. I think it's in big fucking trouble.
So by 2020, they said they want to geolocate. I don't think that's the exact time. Maybe they said 2021, 2022.
No, they did. Like they said, basically, that it was recently claimed again that next year they would already start going. But I think it's implied that they're going to do it like this initially. Like initially, you'll start like I don't think everyone they tried to imply that it would be like, okay, so in the NBA, if you're a West Coast team and you have to play your 2 games against each of the teams from the East Coast, what they do to make the scheduling reasonable is they'll make a trip for you so that when you go to the East Coast, you might play the Celtics and then you might play the Milwaukee Bucks, you might play the Chicago Bulls, and you might finish up playing the New York Knicks. Like you might do like a little tour, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. Instead of going from LA to Boston and then back for an LA game and then to Chicago for a game, like they make it so it's a road trip that makes sense. Mm-hmm. They implied they'll do that. So for example, obviously the teams that are in big trouble are like the 2 European franchises are going to obviously be either just at home games or mad traveling around the world. There's 1 franchise in Korea, similar story. So they implied it will be like that initially. It won't literally be like every game's here and there, but like no one's ever made anything like that work. I always make that point as well. No, the NFL isn't even worldwide, but what League of Legends is going to be with the league or Overwatch is going to be, that just seems implausible to me.
NFL will never be worldwide due to football is never going to be the number 1 sport in Korea or China or Europe, but
logically it could be local because the reason why esports games is because the new generation plays them. Yeah, so if the new generation cared about the NFL, one day it could be around the world, but it's not going to happen. You're right. Like no one is going to care about it.
So then do you think Overwatch League just fails and falls flat on its face in 2020?
The biggest problem Overwatch League has, mate, isn't any of those factors. It's like, how do you make the viewership rise? Because it's shit at the moment, right? The viewership isn't good enough. They're never going to get to 1 million concurrent. It's not going to happen.
I think the next obvious step that they would do if they weren't happy with the viewership is free to play to try to put more people into playing Overwatch.
Could well be.
And then what if they're watching Overwatch? Like that's their next 2 steps, right?
The point is, again, like I said before, no one can really, like you can do everything you can do well, but still doesn't mean the game will definitely succeed. So the big problem Overwatch League has is, of all the games to try this experiment with, they've started one that's kind of like it's like dead on arrival. Like the game itself isn't very fresh. The game itself isn't growing, isn't getting bigger. So if they tried this as they are starting to, as you're alluding to with League of Legends, that's interesting. League of Legends is still a pretty vibrant game. It's still got a pretty big following. But like the real interesting thing to me would be if someone could somehow do this approach with a brand new game that was taken off. But there is no game like that at the moment, so there's nothing really on that. Anyway, let's not make this show too much about League of Legends, because I know the way those fucking Reddit mods are, mate. And they're gunning to take these episodes down the whole week. So they already took down the one where we made all those awkward comments about like fucking dating or some shit, didn't they? I can't remember if they did or didn't. Like, did they? Maybe they didn't.
They took down the Lisa.
They did?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck them then.
Okay, well,
whatever.
Just
because no girls want to talk to them.
All right. Any final League of Legends topic you want to end the show on then?
Has anything else happened in the world?
Anything
Do
else?
I get a proposal topic?
Sure.
Yeah, come on.
Now we are seeing, I think just today on the subreddit, there's another case of match fixing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, somehow, some way that these are all kind of people I've worked with in the past that were not the match fixers, but the people who were like adjacent to these people match fixing.
Right, give us your thoughts on this.
So, from what I know, like especially because of how cheap things are in Vietnam, like there was this period of time I was receiving messages every other day of people from China who were interested in buying a VCS slot. And people like investing all these mad amounts of cash into the LMS, which didn't really make sense given the state of their viewership. Mm-hmm. And there was 2 possible reasons I had in my head. The first is there a global push? Like there was this global push in terms of like expanding China's soft power to sports. And that's why there was all this China investment trying to buy up the big football teams in Europe and that kind of stuff. Was that possibly the reason? And is this the reason why they're doing it? Or is it that they're trying to manipulate or use this to turn a quick profit by match fixing? in these areas. And it turned out, I mean, the first one is a little bit more optimistic, but it turns out that at the moment we're looking at the second scenario where there are people coming in, and because of how big some of these gambling sites are, unfortunately, there are people who are going in there and they're realizing that they can just buy a team on the cheap comparatively, and then go in there, rig the games, and start to match fix.
And this is where NA comes in, and this is where I can say NA is the greatest. So in Korea, when StarCraft match fixing happened, a lot of the match fixing came from the poorest of teams. There was not a single match fixer from SKT, and when the StarCraft pros came out and said why, like the SKT players never needed to match fix because they were all paid very well. So even the lowest tier player for SKT was paid really well, so they never needed to match fix. But for all
Wasn't Xavier famously banned?
He hasn't thought this through. Yeah, the most famous person banned was a guy making massive money. He was making six figures a year.
Xavier is like an off case, but the majority of the match fixing,
he was the one literally organizing it all.
Yeah, so Xavier is like the organizer, but SKT was clean of it, and then I forgot which team it was, but there was one team where
it was Height Sparkies, and nearly all of them got banned basically.
They were the fucking dirt poor team. So for NA, like match fixing, like let's say someone tells me I'll pay you $1,000 to throw a match, when NA salaries are fucking huge. NA players are less likely to match fix, and NA, because we are paid extremely well, this is where we are protected very well against match fixing.
You know, the key thing here, Loco, like I know what you made. It was actually a funny point. Like you made a decent point, but the way that your point collapses is because there isn't massive online betting in America. If there was massive online betting in America, the American market would fucking dwarf whatever's going on in Taiwan or Vietnam. And if that money was there, the whole point is, Loco, they wouldn't be. They'd be saying, here's 50k, I will instantly transfer you in cryptocurrency if you throw this game right now. Oh, and by the way, since it's all this money involved, we're also criminals and we'll murder you if you don't do this. Because I'm just going to go ahead and say it. So I'll be very careful not to mention what countries I'm talking about and what teams, because I don't want to be killed by a fucking mafia assassin Loco. But basically, publicly, one of the top Chinese CSGO players, a guy called Captain Mo, when he said he was going to retire, he's actually coming back now on a different team. He said he was going to retire from Tai Lu, the CSGO team he played for, right? And he literally said in a twit longer that he'd had offers to throw matches. I happen to know for a fact, I'm going to have to now be very vague, that certain Asian countries in CSGO are rife with match fixing, as in ridiculous ones that are even blatant. I've seen the videos and they're so bad at match fixing that what they would do is, like, if they were winning the game too much, they would just like run around corners and jump and have like the wrong gun and stuff and purposely throw the game. Or the biggest problem is, and this is more of a problem in CSGO than League of Legends, because in League of Legends, it's one big game. CSGO, because it goes round by round, they introduced the same thing they have in a lot of sports, micro betting. So you can bet on the next round. You can bet on who gets the first kill in the next round, who dies first in the next round. There were cases where in this certain Asian country, people literally took timeouts in the game, and then bizarrely, the next round they came out the timeout, they did the match fixing quite blatantly on that one round, which means that someone told them, do a timeout, let everyone bet because you're up 13-3 that you're going to win the next round because you got money, and then find a way to lose it so that you throw it and we win all the money because we bet on the underdog case, which is the odds. Now, I'm going to say one other thing. Not only would it exist in NA, but maybe not as much, maybe the government would pursue it. But I will say this, it already exists in League of Legends, not just this case here. Again, there are two big Asian countries, one of them's Korea, by the way, Loco, I'm not scared of Koreans, that have literally had match fixing in League of Legends. I am aware of world championship level League of Legends players who have thrown matches. Not may have thrown matches, I've heard a rumor, they have thrown matches. It was even known in the community, and it was never exposed, because if you know anything about how media works in some of these big Asian countries, including Korea, they have a cabal.
That's a huge
I could back it up, mate. I could back it up. Okay. They could actually. What happens is you will just get banned from press passes. He had nothing to do with any of this. But my point is, I'm not calling anyone specifically out, but I'm telling you, I know these things have happened. And so the big problem is, it's the same reason that those StarCraft 2 people did the throws, and the same reason Xavier did it. What happens is this. Either you have a corrupt person in your org and he's an authority figure, like he's like the assistant manager, and he gets involved with these people. Because, by the way, the people who make you match fix, you don't match fix for fun. You're always involved with the criminal element when you do that. It's people who literally are the equivalent of the mafia. And what happens is, once they get you to do a small match fix, they say, we'll do it on this small one. It's a meaningless game. Who cares? Now they have you on the hook, because if you say anything, they could expose that you match fixed. So what happens now is you thought it was all cool to just throw a side game for money. One day they come and they tell you to throw a real live game, a real game in the real league that you play in. And it might even eventually, if you're very unlucky and you're really deep with these guys, it might be a game that actually matters. And there were games that happened in StarCraft, in League of Legends, where this took place. So this isn't about just Asian people in general. It's not some sort of racist rant. Unfortunately, it's because in those countries, gambling is a massive thing that is run by the criminal element, unfortunately. So that pressure just finds its way in. I would agree with what Jensen said earlier as well. It's like some of it is like, they're very poor, the money's worth a lot to them, etc. They got in with a bad crowd. Like there's a lot of dodgy stuff. So I'm not going to reveal any more info, but I would just say this is an example where people might think, oh, it's just a small team that got caught there. Yeah, they got caught, but there's a lot of that shit goes on.
That is like, I'm surprised like you said it on the show, and like I'm not sure if you did articles on it before, because that is. Like,
I've never published anything on it, mate. I'm not exaggerating. I will never publish a story on those topics because you will be murdered. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. You will be murdered.
You're saying it publicly, like the show is live and like it's going to go on.
I'm not going to be murdered. I haven't mentioned anyone's name. I didn't even say what country it was from except Korea.
Okay, I'm just saying I'm so surprised like you mentioned this, because this is like nuclear bombs. This is
already known. Like in CSGO, me and Richard have talked about this many times. The point is, no one mentions it in League of Legends because no one wants to look into that. It's depressing, isn't it? To find out there's fucking people basically cheating, sort of in a way, and trying to manipulate the scene. And it's not. Listen, it's in League of Legends. It's not happening loads at the top level. Those were, I would hope, isolated incidents. But my point is, if they could get to players in League. Now, by the way, in League of Legends as well. Remember the context there. There were many years in League of Legends. Players might be good enough to win the World Championship, but might also make $20,000 a year. They might not be making very much. So to be fair, there was that context as well. But my point is, that happens way more in esports than people realise.
Okay.
It's because it's very hard to prove, Loco. Like, think about it, right? Say, when I said I watched the VOD and I could tell they were match fixing, right? That's just my opinion. If I actually told someone, ban that guy, he match fixed, dude, he could take you to court. Like, how are you going to prove that he did a cheat? You'd have to have like a track. You'd have to be able to track some sort of payment that went to him, or you'd have to be. I don't know how you'd prove it. It'd be very hard. So the problem is, even if all the circumstantial evidence tells you that the guy threw the game, it's going to be very hard to legally prove he did, and you're going to have a lot of hard evidence to do that.
For what it's worth, I just want to make this very clear. One, I do not know of anybody who's match fixing at the moment. Somehow I'm lucky enough to know that, as in I do not know personally. And second thing is, that is not my assertion that people are buying teams to match fix. It's just that I brought the possibility that could this be what they're doing in terms of looking at where the money is coming from. Because there are a lot of Chinese organizations who are trying to buy teams in the adjacent Asian leagues.
Oh.
So
anyway, whatever. That's the end of that topic. I've no doubt your audience is so mentally ill. They're like, why isn't he said who it is? Like, yeah, well, you didn't listen to any of the points that I made there, did you? Like, if I was good, like, why would I reveal it on this show if I had that information? Like, if that was public information, I'd have done an article, wouldn't I? It's not public information. It's only private. And the whole point is, it wouldn't, like, here's the real point. I would never be able to show the hard evidence of it because you'd have to actually catch, like, I'll give you a very quick story. So, people probably have heard, Loco, a very famous story, right, where Richard Lewis exposed match fixing in CSGO. Yeah. Very famous American team, iBuyPower, did a match fixed, a meaningless online game, and they ended up getting they get banned by Valve forever, and people know they match fixed. Here's the key detail. When you know this, you'll know why this is not exposed and why no one investigates. Even when Richard had a lot of circumstantial evidence that they'd thrown the game, Valve didn't give a shit. No one cared. No one did anything. The players lied and said we didn't do it, and they were going to get away with it. What made them literally get busted is one of the girlfriends of one of the people who wasn't even on that team, but he was involved with the throw. One of the girlfriends of one of those guys got cheated on by one of those guys. And so she was so pissed off, she contacted Richard and said, you know what, I've got proof that he did it, actually. I've got my whole cell phone logs of the text messages. And he admits that he did it all. So what happens is that woman had to send her mobile phone across the Atlantic to Richard. He had to video himself opening it up and showing it's the proper phone, showing the text logs, and he then took that to Valve and said, look, I've tracked all the payments that show that they received the skins. Here's a log saying that they did it from someone who knows them. That's what got them banned in the end. And remember, that's only the game developer banning them. That's not like a legal thing. Nobody's taken them to court. They haven't been sued for defrauding anyone. Like the problem is to stop real life crime, Loco. That's the point I'm making. We're not just talking now about fucking around in esports. When criminal element gets involved, we're talking about a real life crime. Well, the only real way to deal with real life crime is the police have to get involved. Why did those two guys go down, Savior and Life, most famously in StarCraft? That wasn't because of Kesper. That was because of the fucking police. The police investigated their case, got them to admit, got all the evidence, and did a court case against them. Good luck, by the way, good luck as an outsider getting fucking Chinese people to do anything about anything they're seeing. It ain't going to happen, is it? Like, you can't even enforce copyrights in China. How are you going to tell some massive company, oh, you can just go and arrest this player who's cheating in my game? I'm from America, but can you make him get arrested? No, it's not going to work, is it? So it's a depressing topic, and I've given you as much insight as I can without ending up sleeping with the fucking fishes. But that's the end of this topic. End of the show. Hope everyone enjoyed it.
Okay.